Hello, welcome to Directly to You. It's episode 185. This is the show where I, AJ from fanatixfour, usually talk to Parker from fanatixfour, who is not here. And because of that, I'm joined by Pete of, I was about to say Loot Pots, Flipscreen Games. That's relatively new to me in terms of announcing it as a guest on the show. He's never been on the show before for the first time ever.
Yeah, you think you wouldn't make that mistake since this is only my first time on the show.
That's
but
true.
Hey.
But it's literally your first time on the show with me anyway, since you joined Flipscreen Games. So
that is true.
That's true.
So it's
in
a way, it's a first time again,
Exactly. It's the first time all over again, like always. But literally the first time ever being on the show as a participant and not a listener. Megaman, what's up?
Woo!
Hello. What's going on?
Hello.
To support this channel and all that stuff, you go to youtube.com/fanatixfour, twitch.tv/fanatixfour. If you go to $4.99, it don't even got to be yours. It can be Jeffy Bezos's $4.99. If you have Amazon Prime, link it to your Twitch account, you get Twitch Prime Gaming. It's free for you, not for Bezos, but he has enough money. It's fine. In exchange for that, you get loyalty badges, you get emotes, you get free Switch keys from time to time, you get access to our supporters on Discord, where you can listen to us record this show. And you can also listen to us record this show if you join the Discord for the free, and the link in the description, and you just contribute in chat and, post pictures of your dog and whatnot. We play video games here as well. What video games are you guys playing?
Hey, this isn't just a pet podcast. I'm sorry.
It's not just a pet podcast.
Send lots of pet pictures.
We play video games as well. We definitely
had all these great cat pics ready to go. I'm a little disappointed.
I mean, you can show the pet pics. You can definitely do that.
All right, here, I'll go one. you keep hosting the show. I'll find.
Okay, Mega Man, what games you playing? Playing any video games other than the one that we're going to talk about? Because clearly, the one in the title, it's coming. It is coming.
Yeah. I've been playing that game, but also I've been mainly going back to Sword and Shield and BDSP as well. Cute cat.
It's a cat.
It's my cat Lucas. He found the bathtub the other day for the first time.
Nice.
So
OMG,
solid.
Nice.
So, you got to come watch on YouTube, everybody.
That's a fact.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta watch on YouTube to see the cat. To see
So I've been trying to complete the full living dex and BDSP. I'm about 90 Pokemon away from that.
Game sucks. Game's bad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then I've been shiny hunting Beldum on Sword and Shield, and that hasn't been a good time. I'm about 700 eggs in.
Oh yeah, you're doing that for the like the Twitch gym leader league situation.
Yep.
I saw your TikTok about that, and I was just like, ooh, gosh, that is
Oof.
just devastating.
Oof.
Yep. Apart from that, a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Quest.
It's Master Duel, you fake fan.
Whatever it's called. See, I played it. I played it once. I played for about 4 hours. And it was a good time. That's my thoughts on it.
So I was supposed to talk about that game last week, so I will talk about it here because I forgot to talk about it last week. In fairness, last week I had very different thoughts on the game, and they were not very good. This week they're better. They're better, but still not great. The game itself is good. It's good at what it's trying to do. The like Yu-Gi-Oh card game simulator situation. That's great. But this game, the existence of this game, super scummy. It's super scummy. And I had no idea about that because I didn't even understand like how to get cards. I didn't know what was happening the first like day or so that I was playing it. But once I found out that it's like, oh, okay, you play through the tutorials, you play through the story mode, you get gems to like unlock these cards and blah blah. And they basically give you like $40-$50 worth of gems for free for completing all the tutorials and stuff like that. But after that, it's drip feed. It's like you gotta either play the game like excessively or you gotta give them money. So I came into the game like I do every Yu-Gi-Oh game that comes out when I was like now in the current day, not like when I actually like consistently kept up with Yu-Gi-Oh in like 2006. And I'm like, yo, I'm going to make an elemental hero deck or heroes in general, because heroes are like still relevant. Like they always try to keep like Blue Eyes relevant, Dark Magician, elemental heroes, that type of stuff. So I'm always in a good place there. But in doing these gem things, before I found out how to get specific cards, which to do that, you can search for whatever card you want, whatever card that exists. You can go to the deck editor thing and search for the deck. And if you have points to do so, there's like different rarities in the game, and you could deconstruct cards to get those points in that rarity. You can generate the card that you search for that you don't have.
That's cool. I like that you have that option. I play Magic the Gathering Arena, which is like very similar, and I don't believe you can do that. And that's something that I'm very frustrated by, because I'll see a card that I'm like, oh, this would be perfect for X or Y deck, but the only way to get it is to like open packs. And it's a similar thing where it's like, unless you're putting in currency, you gotta like do your dailies and whatever to unlock those things. So
right,
it's nice that you can at least build out like single cards if you only need one or two to like, improve a deck that you're working on.
Yeah,
I think that's also the direction that Pokemon Live is going to go as well when that launches. Very, very similar concept. So
nice. I haven't really looked into Pokemon Live. I need to, though.
Yeah, I mean,
I asked Nicole. She's working on that game, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
Nice. But yeah, no, you still have to open packs though, because the only way that you can get the currency to unlock the cards, like, so the thing about Elemental Heroes is a lot of the cards that are like important and that like archetype, or just heroes in general, again, is that a lot of them are ultra rares, and to get one ultra rare, you need to deconstruct or dismantle 3 ultra rares of whatever other card. So yeah, yikes. So you have to open a lot of packs, and the only time you're like guaranteed to get an ultra rare, at least one, is if you open 10 packs in bulk of like whatever run of packs that they have.
So how do you get the currency though? Like, is it just by like winning games, or are there like daily things that
the
you can
main
do, or...
like the currency for buying packs gems you get by, so like I said, you get about like $40 worth of gems just by playing through the tutorial. And then there's like story modes. There's like small like vignettes of like, this archetype's story mode. So like if it was like a dark magician archetype story mode, it teaches you about that deck. It just says like they're mini ads for like buy into this deck, like that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. Here's this play style that you might want to buy.
Right, exactly. And when you play through those, you get bits and pieces of points and stuff like that. You might get like 100 gems.
But can you only do that like once? I'm imagining like you'll hit a point where that's no longer an option, right?
Right. And it's diminishing returns after the tutorial and maybe like the first story mode. It's a steep drop from like you get $40 worth of gems for completing the tutorial, but then you do the first story mode or whatever, and you might get like 100 gems, which is like $1.
That's a shame. Because it sounds like it's like up front it's pretty good, but you're really kind of getting railroaded at some point where like that was kind of my initial impression of MTG Arena, but like now that I've played it for probably close to a year, there are dailies and you get like victory bonuses, and then you also get like level increases. So there's all these different things you can do to get coins, which are that's like the freemium kind of currency that you just earn by playing. But even like the gems kind of equivalent that they have, you can win from doing like drafts and like certain events and stuff. So there's a lot of ways that if you like play a lot anyway, just because you're enjoying playing, like they give you a lot of decent decks and you can kind of start building them out and, having a lot of like success without I haven't put any money in, and I'm seeing my decks get better and better over time. And I'm not necessarily feeling limited. Like I have 27,000 coins right now, so I can buy 27 packs, and I have that just sitting because I play the game a little bit, every day, or at least every other day, whatever,
Makes sense.
So it's like, it sounds like it's very much existing to kind of create that pipeline where you're like, oh no, like I'm not getting currency anymore. The only way I can keep getting new stuff is to pay.
And it also feels like either you pay or you play a lot, and you have to, I'm pretty sure, to earn currency, like any meaningful currency anyway, you have to win. So you have to build a good enough deck to be able to duel people online and beat them. And there's supposed to be like plans for them to do like tournaments, and I'd assume like drafts and stuff like that later down the line. So maybe it will improve in that sense. But I feel like anybody that isn't like me, where they go into the game and they're like, I want to build that and just that. Like, I don't care about any other archetype. I am just building this. Anybody else is going to have a bad time, because you're just like throwing darts at a board and you're like, maybe I like this one. And then you spend a whole bunch of money to try to figure out if you like it or not. Then you don't, and you have to do it all over again to try another archetype.
Yeah, that feels bad.
Yeah. But for me personally, it's all right. I got my heroes. They're not completely done building it yet, but I have enough to win. I win most duels that I do.
You've gotten enough carrot that like the stick that there is like, it's whatever,
exactly.
Right? Like, could it be better? Sure, but you got the deck you want to use, so you can get a couple games in a week.
I wanted to make sure that I front loaded my thoughts on the game with the criticisms that I would have if I didn't have mine. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to just be like, I got mine. The game's great, dude. I have my heroes. Nah. If you don't have that very specific desire like me, the game might suck for you, but the game's alright for me because I do have a very specific desire when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh.
Hopefully they balance that a little bit so it's a little bit easier to play the game as like a more casual, free player.
Yep, for sure. Other than that, Smash, that's always in the rotation, trying to get very good at the video game. I played against Quid again. For people that don't know, that's like the current best in the world Pokemon trainer, based on results anyway. There's no real way to verify that on a head-to-head basis, because like the other like one that's in contention is in Japan, and COVID is COVIDing. But yeah, I played against him in a session and I won a game or two. It was pretty cool, and learned some things. That was dope. And then also I did the Pokemon Nuzlocke and everybody died and it was very tragic and I was legitimately sad.
I saw that, dude. Rest in peace. That's rough.
So sad.
That is the worst way to lose a Nuzlocke.
I got so close. I literally got to his last Pokemon. It's like to the point where, man, if that one crit didn't hit there or whatever, it's like I could have won that. It sucks so much, man. It was rough.
I know those feels way too much.
Unfortunate. Before I transition into the other game that we're all playing, is there anything else that you guys are playing?
Yeah, the only other thing that's been on my plate lately is Death's Door. It recently came to it's really good. I'm having fun with it. It recently came to Xbox Game Pass. And it's one that had been on kind of like my backlog for a while. And then since it was there and I was, waiting for Pokemon, I was kind of chipping away at a bunch of indie games. Like I had just beaten like Psychonauts 2 and I played Unpacking before that. So it was kind of like running through a bunch of indie games, and Death's Door is the one that I'm a third of the way through it, and I will probably not touch it for quite some time now because I cannot get away from Pokemon. But yeah, I'm really, really having a good time with it. We talked a lot about it on the Flipscreen Games podcast this week, where like
everybody check it out, link to the description.
Check it out. It's interesting because generally I'm not a big fan of roguelikes. Hades was kind of the exception to that rule because I often feel kind of frustrated by having like that perceived lack of progress, right? Where like if you have a run that you get bad luck and you waste 20-30 minutes because you didn't get the right boons or the right, power-ups or whatever, and it just is kind of a wash. I like that Death's Door is more like roguelite, and that any run still has a purpose because you're constantly getting souls that you can use to build out your character, or maybe you get a little bit further on the map and you knock down that ladder or something like that gives you, that kind of like, souls thing where it opens up back a new area and you can more quickly get to somewhere that you had to work to get the previous time. So I always feel like I'm advancing something. And that kind of rhythm has been rewarding for me because I see my character getting faster and stronger, and the game feels better the more you play and the more you level up your Crow, so or Reaper, I guess. So yeah, I'm really, really having a good time with it.
I called him a pigeon. It's like a pigeon to me.
He does look like a pigeon.
It's so funny because like you think of crows and ravens as kind of like scary looking. He's a Grim Reaper. I'm like, he's cute. Like he's too adorable.
maybe that's why. I mean, pigeons aren't cute. They're nasty. But maybe that's why he didn't immediately seem like a pigeon. I mean, like a crow to me.
I think if you get past pigeons reps, they can be cute. You know, it's a lot like a rat. Like you think of them as dirty because it's like a nasty street bird that you see in New York. But if you just met a pigeon that was somebody's pet, I bet you'd like.
Yeah,
it,
he's just like a domesticated pigeon. He's probably he's
There's tons of them.
Like
you met a carrier pigeon, like I bet you'd be boys.
The pigeon man and Hey Arnold.
There you go.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Fair reference.
That's a fact. But yeah. Are we ready to
let's get to the main event already. How many minutes are we into this podcast? Pokemon, let's go.
It's Pokemon, everybody. It's freaking, it's the game. What do we think?
It's the freaking weekend. Let's go.
How much do we think this game sucks? Game Freak lied, so on and so forth. Let's just rip it a new one. You know what I mean? Game's garbage, right?
All right, I'll rip a new one for the start. Can we just all agree that the tutorial absolutely sucks?
The tutorial does suck, but I think it's overblown a little bit.
I'm with you. I think it sucks, but it sucks less than other tutorials have. So I'm like, it's not as, I don't dislike it as much as like the hour-long movie I had to play through before Sun and Moon let me do anything.
That is true. The thing that got me, and I said this on stream as well, is they repeat themselves so much throughout.
Yes.
Like, they send you out right at the beginning. You have the 3 starter Pokemon there, and they teach you how to catch that. And you're like, sweet, I've got the hang of this.
Hold on.
And then they see you
brought
back
up the
out
starter
into the
Pokemon thing. I have beef. With the starter Pokemon thing. I'm so pissed. I'm still mad to this day at freaking whatever his name is, the tree man, the professor dude. Those are my Pokemon, rightfully. I called all 3 of them. They're mine.
That is true.
What's up with that?
I did have that thought where it's like, oh, you can pick one of these. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, you lost them. I went and caught them for you. I feel like you wouldn't have these Pokemon anymore.
I did the hard work.
Literally, the implication is, unless their Pokeballs just suck and are less advanced, which is a real possibility, that they were never his Pokemon. He just was like, like, they stay with me. Like, I don't know how to catch them in Pokeballs. I would miss if I threw a Pokeball, but they're here, so they're technically mine. But I threw the Pokeball and it's mine.
And so I feel like my attitude too, right, is okay, you're this Pokemon professor, you're trying to further your study, you're useless in the field. Facts. So you've needed to employ 2 children to help you out. Don't you want to further our chance of success, like as much as you? Because like
stack it back as much as you can.
And I can't think of her name, but the like rival,
Dawn's ancestor, is it Akari?
Oh, Akari.
Akari, yeah.
It's Akari.
I think that's right.
It's Akari.
Yeah. But like she doesn't get one of them. Like you're just holding on to both of these. They're sitting in the laboratory.
They're literally sitting in the lab.
It's like we're literally limiting what we could be learning about these 2 Pokemon and their line of evolution by them just sitting, chilling out with you. It's like, I know you want a pet. Why don't you take one of my 40 Bidoof?
Exactly.
Only 40 pig? Only 40?
I released a lot of them.
I never released a Pokemon, but to be fair, I mean, Mega Man, continue with your gripes about the tutorial. I wanted to meme on that for a second.
yeah, fair enough. The thing that I guess made me a little bit angry throughout the tutorial was the amount of repetitiveness that it keeps telling you. So like I said, you go catch the starters. That's fine. That's like kind of like your first foray into actually catching the Pokemon. And then they send you out there for your trial after telling you that if you don't pass the trial, that they're going to leave you to die.
You will die. You're about 15. That's old enough to die.
Yeah. It's Pokemon's taking a drastic turn.
They say die a lot in this game.
They do say
they really do.
They talk about death a lot.
Every character is like, oh man, I feel like I'm on just a breath away from death every day out here.
You see Bidoof, they're terrifying. You might
man. They're not cute in this game.
I love that mission where they're just chewing on things in the town and everyone's like, what do we do? Like, I just love how absolutely hapless everyone is, and that you
Yes.
have like a superpower because you're not afraid of
Yeah,
dogs.
exactly. That's
Like,
literally your only
Mhm.
fear is that you're not scared of the Pokemon. Like it's like if everybody was the one person that you bring to your house that's scared of your pet, and it's like if everybody was
Yeah.
that, and you're just the person that has the pet, and it's like, yo, dude,
and
like,
you're Caesar
Yo,
Milan,
it's
the
just a
dog
tiger in my
whisperer.
toilet, all right? Like, just leave it alone. It's fine. It's in the toilet. It's contained. It's not going to hurt you. It's fine.
Facts.
And then they send you out into the wild, and then Akari kind of tells you, all right, this is the long grass. This is how you crouch. The Pokemon are going to do this. That's all fine.
Mhm.
But it's when you pass the trial and you still have to carry on your tutorial, they just don't go like, right, here's how you dodge roll, and away you go.
Mhm.
It's like she just keeps interrupting you as you try to explore. And it's pretty much not until you get your first star, really, that they actually go, right, explore.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's frustrating is like it feels like the tutorial hits a natural endpoint where you're like, all right, cool, like I've got the basics down, and then
Mhm.
they're still teaching me things that I've already figured out, and it's like, okay, I really wish I think it was it Black and White? There's one of them where it kind of has like that question where it's like, hey, like how much do you know about Pokemon? Like how much do we need to tell you?
It might
And
have been Black and White. It might have been like Black and White 2, honestly.
one of them has like
Yeah,
something like that, and it was an idea that they never really seemed to come back to. And
Mhm.
I really wish that we had that option where it's like we could just be like, yeah, no, cool, I got it, like let me go from here, because again, right, I know that this is a game that they want to be accessible to everybody, so like a younger player, a more inexperienced player might need that reminder 2 or 3 times, whereas
Mhm.
like as soon as I get my hands on any game, the first thing I do is press every button. It's like, what does this do? What does this do? What does this do? All
that's
right.
the thing, though.
It's 100% what I did when I landed on that beach.
For me,
Yeah, you just download. You're like, what are my tools to explore this world? All right, let's go.
My one
Okay.
major hang up with the tutorial, because me personally, I'm not super mad at the tutorial, even the fact that it's pretty repetitive, because I get it. I get that they're like, okay, most of our audience generally, even with regular Pokemon games that our core fans inherently understand from top to bottom, are new players. Like it's a revolving door IP. Like most people that are playing a Pokemon game, is their first Pokemon game. This is twofold, because even people that it's not their first Pokemon game, it's their first time with this type of Pokemon game. And like there's people like us that's like it's not just Pokemon, and like we also play other open world games and all this, so it's like it's easier to like get on board, and it's like, oh well, this is sort of like in this game, or like aiming, I play shooters, like that sort of stuff. It's like you're able to connect dots faster. But watching like my niece play a video game is like, oh yeah, she needs to be reminded a lot, so I get it. But
yeah,
but
and
also I do think that they got to do a better job at stuff that they teased a little bit in Sword and Shield, where it's like, if you just so happen to catch a Pokemon before you're taught how to catch a Pokemon, they're like, oh, you know how to catch a Pokemon. And they don't teach you how to catch a Pokemon. That should be done in everything. Also, I was going to bring it up, but the dodge roll thing, the fact that you can't dodge roll until you're told explicitly how to dodge roll is stupid. Like they should just let me have that button, and I press every button when I pick up the controller. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's how I roll. I don't need Dawn or freaking Akari to show me, oh, you can roll. That's sick, dude. Like, you know how to roll. That doesn't even teach me how to do it. I still had to press buttons. Like,
it would be great if it would just be like, to your point, like if you did something on your own, that it would just have that little kind of box that pops up
like
when
I'm
you unlock the
pressing buttons
tutorial
in front of the professor. He's like, oh shoot, you know how to dodge roll? All right, well, I guess I got to tell Kari that you already know how to do that. So like,
yeah, like just kind of like allow some of the tutorialization to be like a little bit more quiet, so that if I don't need to engage with it, I can just keep rolling. But if I do, like, let me push a button and have that screen pop up and read through everything at my pace. It's like a very simple.
It should be like a hands-off sort of opt-out thing, because I hear a lot of people being like, Pokemon needs a difficulty setting and stuff like that. And it's like, I think that from the very beginning, they knew that. And I'm talking like red and green, very beginning. They knew that, but they didn't want like, are you a boy or a girl? Also, do you want to be a wimpy baby or are you a hardcore gamer? You know, like the way that they did that is like, you want to breeze through the game, pick Bulbasaur. You know, you want it to be hard, pick, you know, Charmander or whatever, right? That was their difficulty setting, and then they just maintained that. There's ways for them to keep that like difficulty like behind the scenes and like a thing that you only really pick up on if you're like a gamer or somebody that thinks about design in games, but they didn't really like lift a finger to do that here, which is unfortunate, but hopefully eventually they get to that point.
I guess for the first game in, I guess, a Legends series, if they're actually going to make it a series,
I feel like best case scenario, honestly, and I feel like this is what they're leaning to historically with Let's Go. It's probably not going to be like a whole series, you know, because like the first Let's Go came out, first Let's Go games came out or whatever, and everybody was like, all right, this is another like bi-yearly thing or whatever, right? That's going to be another series. And then they just rolled in a lot of those teachings into other games instead. I feel like that might be what happens here, is they take stuff from Arceus and just roll it into mainline games.
I think that is definitely true, but I could also see them continuing to make, I wouldn't be surprised if there was potentially a split where there's like, there are single player Pokemon experiences, and then there are the traditional experiences, which are made to build towards a end game that is focused on multiplayer. Because I think that those are like two ideas that, and they don't have to be separate. Because like, I mean, and we can talk about, you know, some of the mechanical changes to the battle system. I wouldn't mind if a lot of these changes and innovations did come over to the mainline series, but I could see them wanting to allow the divergence, because there's a lot of like mini games and little ideas and things in this game that feel like this is a thing they want to provide you in an open world that is oriented around single player and exploration versus, you know, what we've traditionally gotten. And I don't know, it could just be that this is the future of Pokemon, and I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but I don't know. I also feel like there's kind of always been two SKUs of Pokemon, and we always were getting like, here's the new generation, here's the remakes, right? And I feel like they're going to want to maintain that rhythm to some degree, right, whether or not it's single player, multiplayer, new remake, regular games, spin-off games that explore new random things that then get rolled into the main games. Like, I think all of those things make sense.
So for me, the main reason why I think that they're going to like opt for consolidation over that is they are starting to understand it's like, oh, people are like, so, and even if it's not the majority, because I don't think it is the majority, it's just the loudest people are so like upset all the time about like the game's graphics and stuff like that, right? So like there's so much about games even like this that are supposed to be like relatively smaller experiences. Like they didn't make this game thinking that you're just going to dump 1,000 hours into it with competitive team building and battling and all the other stuff, right? Like this is probably a game that they're like, the average person might dump 100 hours into this. That they can't dedicate all 300 Game Freak employees to this game, right? But if it was just one game, they could throw the kitchen sink at it. And since they do still have like the remakes going with like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and even that they outsourced, something tells me they might just double down on like one everything in the kitchen sink experience that has the big single player experience, new mechanics, i.e. Arceus and all that stuff, and then also the multiplayer component.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that could take shape. Like, you know, you could fully have a game that's just oriented around the multiplayer and have like, you know, a almost like Pokemon Showdown style, like games as a service thing that is permanent.
Pokemon Home could definitely be that.
Right. Yeah. Like that could evolve into something like that. Or, you know, maybe we bring back something like, you know, people have talked about like, you know, maybe
Pokemon
bring back like the stadium branding or something like that, you know, and you make a game that is oriented just around competitive play, and like there's a bank kind of system, and you don't necessarily have to have Pokemon that you've trained yourself, but if you did play whatever the latest single player experience was and built out your teams and went through the trouble of shiny hunting and or IV or breeding or EV training, that you get that benefit by transferring those Pokemon over to the multiplayer competitive experience.
Right.
I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. It feels like it's a move that's like, it's too modern for Pokemon. It feels like it's too smart. It makes too much sense. But I think that you look at this game, and this game represents a willingness to shake things up that they have literally never shown before. Right? Like the biggest shakeups we've gotten in the past pale in comparison to the ways in which they committed to changing the formula this time around, which I think is really, really promising, right? Like this game might not be that Breath of the Wild moment, but
it's definitely not.
It's not.
Yeah.
But it's the closest we've been by, I would say, miles.
Yeah.
Right. And
exactly.
The long-term promise of the learnings of this game, I think, are probably the most exciting thing about it. It is like we're getting closer and closer to Pokemon being what I think we all know that it could, and at this point probably should be.
Yeah. So for me, the main reason that I feel so much like faith in the fact that they are moving in a more modern direction is like, look at the past few projects that they've done, excluding Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, which was outsourced, which I think is also promising. First, we got Go. It's like, this is this entirely different thing. It is nothing like the mainline Pokemon games that you have ever played, blah, 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 blah. Then we had Sun and Moon, which also was like, it's similar. It's similar, but there's a lot of stuff that's different about this game. Then we had Sword and Shield that tried to implement teachings that they've learned from both of those things. And now we have Arceus, which implements a lot of different, even before that, even before Sword and Shield, Let's Go, which implemented a lot of stuff that Sword and Shield learned from, and then we take stuff from Sword and Shield, Go, Let's Go, and put all of that into Arceus. It's going in a straightforward trajectory, whereas before, even from game to game, they would introduce something even as simple as like, you can clean your badges in Diamond and Pearl, and then in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, that's not in the game anymore. They didn't really do that this time around. It's like if something new was introduced, they kept it and they implemented on it.
And in a lot of cases iterated, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole like ride Pokemon thing, right? Like, that is one of the things I think I'm the most impressed about is, how well that just like quote unquote
it's
just
super
works.
smooth. Yeah.
Like it never is intrusive. You're so much less bogged down with like loading, or not even loading screens, but like pause menus.
Like cutscenes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's like in Sun and Moon, where it's like I gotta call in my Charizard, and it does the whole thing of him like flying into you or whatever. And this game is just literally Braviary just pops up.
You press a button and you're moving. And you can switch between them in like 2 seconds. Things like that. Like those are things that I think, unfortunately, because we historically grade Pokemon on a bit of a curve, these are things that we're like, wow, like they nailed these things, and like they should, so I don't want to,
I mean, I want to push back on the grade them on a curve thing, because it's like we don't grade them on a curve. Like I feel like people want to grade them unfairly, honestly, because they go from making 240p handheld games, and that's what people have wanted from them for 25 years, and then all of a sudden they're expected to make 1080p 60 frames per second HD experiences. Like they're going through a trajectory that every developer had to go through at one point or another if they existed in that space for as long as Pokemon did.
And you're right about that. I don't disagree. Like, and I'm happy to give them a certain amount of rope when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I also think that to push back on that, there's also the argument to be made that like when you look at, other studios that have the legacy and the number of like, hits that Game Freak has, right? Like every Pokemon game is a bestseller.
Right.
They have budget, and the idea that they couldn't, when they were like, hey, we are making the jump from sprite based to 3D, and then going from 3D on the 3DS to like true proper HD development, knowing that was a skill set that they didn't have there, and like they needed to cultivate that talent, right? Like where was the effort to headhunt somebody who has that skill and who like is capable of delivering the level of quality that I think you expect from, you know, a AAA game that costs $60 on Switch, right?
Mm.
You know, I think to compare, you know, like this is anecdotal, right? But like, I was talking about how while I was playing the game, I was sitting next to my fiance, and when I got to one of the like kind of vistas, I remember one of the first things she said, she was like, "Ooh, she's like the textures aren't really great, huh? Like the grass doesn't look very good. And like, oh, the trees look a little bit like thin,
Oh, no,
you know,
trees,
and it's like
trees,
there's all those things, right? And it's like,
Jeez.
you know, do I as a person who's loving the gameplay loop of this game, who like has not been able to put it down, are those things taking me out of the experience? No. You know, like are those bad enough problems that they discredit the, you know, innovation and the things about this game that are really good and novel and fun and creative? No, not at all.
Mm.
But I also think that as, you know, fans who, you know, I let's be frank, right? In the last 4 months or whatever, I've spent $100 and, you know, plus dollars on Pokemon games, right? It's not unreasonable for me to be like, okay, I was Sword and Shield. I was like, all right, yeah, the trees, it's their first at bat. Hey, this is the second one that you've had now on Switch.
Right,
where is that, right?
Where they made a different leap forward, right?
And that's true, right?
Yeah.
But with a company with the amount of legacy and resources that Game Freak has, you can't tell me that there's not an environmental artist who hasn't grown up loving Pokemon who isn't like, God, if only they'd let me make the trees, like, you know, and I want to see that investment in polish, because
I entirely agree with you. I do want to say that much, but for me, it's just like, it's like so much of it is also a cultural thing. We don't know how that money is like divvied up, because Game Freak is essentially like in the world of Pokemon, like they're a hired hand more often than not. It's like Pokemon Company controls everything, and Game Freak makes the games, and they're given a budget at the end of the day. Like Pokemon Company needs to see that value and see that like, oh, Pokemon can be more than 20% of our revenue. Let's invest more. And I think that we're getting closer to the point where they are going to be able to see that. Also, it's worth noting that this is a Japanese company. Look at Nintendo. Look at how, and like a primarily like run Japanese company, unlike a company like Sony, that a lot of their business
they moved
from,
all their headquarters to America.
Yeah, like they're because most of their audience is, and like by a large margin, is Western. Like Nintendo literally owns Japan, so they're still like so much like invested in the Japanese market that they cater to them more often than other companies that people.
But I mean, like, look at how much this game takes inspiration from something like Monster Hunter, right? And like Monster Hunter, I would, you know, there are Monster Hunter games that are like, wow, this is like a groundbreaking graphical achievement, but most often
Monster Hunter World, that's it.
Right. And but most often it's not. It's that they have great style. Right. It's like Pokemon doesn't need to be, you know,
Pokemon. This game should have looked like the promotional material for this game. Like those like painterly like the opening of the game, the game art. This game should have looked like that. Yeah. And that's accomplished with like shaders. Like it would take them more time, but
if this game looked more like Fire Emblem Three Houses, I think that should be the goal, right? Because that's a game that is still, it's very stylized. It's like the 3D anime models. Like it's not this crazy graphical, you know, showcase. It doesn't need to be.
It needs to be Dragon Ball Fighters. Like look at Dragon Ball Fighters without shaders, and it looks like Pokemon now. They just need better shaders. Like that's the long and short of it.
That's a good point actually, because I mean, even looking at the game on Switch, and if you're looking at how the Switch runs from obviously docked versus handheld, they obviously need to make sure that it looks good both docked and handheld, even though docked upscales it a little bit. And you look at that game as a prime example, and the quality of that game, whether you take it from handheld onto docked, it looks the same. It looks great.
Right.
And if Pokemon could do that and make the characters look like that, then it certainly makes it forward. But I think you're also right. When you play the game and you look around, you go, oh yeah, some of the textures don't look that great. But at the same time, I'm so invested around looking at the Pokemon that are around, what I'm trying to do. I'm invested in the story. I couldn't care I couldn't
Yes.
care less that the grass looked terrible. I'm looking at the trees that have berries on them. If I don't see a tree with berries on them, I'm like, oh, that's just a normal tree, and I don't pay attention.
Exactly. That's the
I'm
most that I'm
narrow-focused
paying
on what-
attention to the tree.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
to your point, the Pokemon themselves look great, right? Like I think the model work here is really strong. There are a lot of new animations, which is something that obviously people have had all kinds of comments about in the past.
Which I think is definitely like people should applaud them on that. Like they're taking criticism in stride and they're working on it for sure.
And like seeing the Pokemon actually exhibit behavior and like having like AI patterns that like are predictable but not like static is something that I'm really appreciating. Like the first time that I encountered a Pokemon that's active during the day and I found it at the evening and it was asleep and I was like, oh wow, like that's actually, you know, I'm looking at 3-4 different unique kind of like animation cycles between exactly. And that shows that, you know, again, right, like reducing the decks and, you know, and some of those things, like it's let them focus a little bit more. And again,
just
like
how many games, even from the biggest studios in the world, how many games really have 1,000 unique, like distinct models? Like there's
everyone goes back to Breath of the Wild, but Breath
of the Wild has 22 characters in it.
Exactly,
baby.
Exactly,
right.
You go. Everyone goes back to that argument. Well, Breath of the Wild did it, and it all looks good. It's like they've literally reskinned those characters all over the place. It's the same. What do you say?
And that's the case with Assassin's Creed. That's the case with Call of Duty. That's the case with Grand Theft Auto. Like so many of these games are literally just like, just swap out the model, you know. Maybe we'll map on a like a bump map for a face that we took a picture of, you know, like that sort of thing. But it's not like hand modeled distinct characters that all have their own unique animations. 1,000? It's like that's crazy. Even 300 is crazy.
It's a lot.
I
wrote down that the game's not perfect, but it's a great step forward.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the stuff that I've noticed. Like playing through the game, I'm like, oh man, these are very good steps, but they're not there yet. Like one of the first things that I noticed with like the ever-present comparison to Breath of the Wild, right? There's a lot of times where I'm like, can I do this? And the answer is no. The answer is almost never no in Breath of the Wild. But like there was like this thing that I kept like bringing up when people ask me about the game in like Twitch chat and stuff like that, right? I'm like, this sums up how I feel about the game. I'll throw out my Pokeball with the Pokemon in it. I'll throw a berry at them and they do nothing. And I'm like, why? Like, why can I not heal my Pokemon like that? By being like, here's my Pokemon, here's a berry, eat the berry. That's like in Breath of the Wild, they would have ate that berry.
Right.
And I spent so much time, like I didn't even know how to heal my Pokemon for probably the first like half hour or more that I was playing the game. Somebody in chat, Trev, had to tell me like, oh, you go into this menu by pressing up and then you press R on the thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's how I heal my Pokemon. But like, why can't I just pick it on the weapon wheel and spray the Pokemon that I just chose out the Pokeball?
Ben made a good point. So Cyberpunk has a million different models. You just can't meet them or you'll break the game.
Even that game, it's like there's different models, but they're like modified from the same base, you know. But
I just found that funny. The game's still broken.
True. Game's gorgeous. Visually, looks great. Sucks though.
It's broken. It's a literally broken game.
Yeah.
I went into this game and people were asking me before the game came out around what my expectation was. And I said to them, I said that I don't expect this game to be what everyone is expecting it to be, that it's the Breath of the Wild, it's the well-polished game. I was expecting good story, which it has so far. A lot of dialogue, but a lot of it's really good lore. And I love
much
Pokemon
dialogue.
lore.
There's so much dialogue.
So much dialogue. But it's for me, it's interesting.
I want to build on that real quick. I agree. There is a lot of dialogue, but I also think it's less than there was, or at least it feels like there's less than there was in Sun and Moon, which was like egregious. And it's a lot better Like the dialogue.
I think that's what it is. Like I just did the Nuzlocke for Sword and Shield. There's not that much dialogue in Sword and Shield. None of it feels like it matters. Like I don't care about this, but you care about everything in this game because so much of it is new and stuff like that. So it's like you're reading through it and it's like it's a lot of dialogue. Like I think that's also part of why like the tutorial for so many people feels so long, because they intertwine so much of the lore and the dialogue that doesn't have anything to do with the tutorial with the tutorial. So it feels like it takes hours, but most of that is them like lore dumping on you, you know. Like,
but you know, in general, like I agree, like I'm interested in the lore, I'm interested in the story and like what's going on. There are a lot of questions that have been raised that don't feel like they have obvious answers, and I appreciate that, the fact that like I'm asking myself questions about, oh, what does this mean, and like what is the implication of this beat of the story that I've experienced, rather than like, oh yeah, oh, there's this legend about these two Pokemon. Bet you I'm going to find and catch them. Okay. Yep. That is the story, right? Okay. Yeah. Like, and it feels so much less predictable. And the dialogue, you know, I think in general is better and snappier. Like it doesn't feel as a lot of Pokemon dialogue, especially in the last couple generations, has felt very stiff. And like, it was still kind of like that Game Boy era where everybody has one line of dialogue and it's like weirdly stilted a lot of the time, whereas like, you know, every character in your home base village has a unique name, right? And they all have minor storylines that are playing out where like, you know, there's a quest where someone might ask you for a Pokemon and then you come back, you know, 2 missions later and that Pokemon's evolved, right? And like they're having, you know, you can see that their relationship has changed, you know, or like
which that's something that I do want to come back to. But while we're on this topic, I do want to, just so we're not being redundant when we get to Q&A.
Sure.
Parker, who's that? Never heard of him. He asked, what is your opinion of dialogue in games? When is it done well or done poorly? Too little versus too much? I think that this game specifically does dialogue better than other Pokemon games, but not great. It's definitely better, but it's not great.
So to answer that question broadly, dialogue in games is like when it's good, it's great, but when it's not, it's painful,
right?
And that's the problem, you know, is like some of my favorite games, you know, like I am a huge BioWare stan when it comes to like the Xbox 360 PS3 era of those games, right? And so much of those games is here's an enemy closet and your reward for that enemy closet is a cutscene and you get to make dialogue choices, and that's like and then when you're done with your mission, I get to go talk to all my friends, and like that's rewarding. That's a huge part of the reward of the loop. Whereas in this game and in a lot of other games, like even something like Breath of the Wild, talking with NPCs feels like a means to an end. Right? Like it's like
it also feels like I'm eating my vegetables. Like I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I want to get to catching the Pokemon and throwing balls at trees. So like,
and like you only talk to people because you're like, well, if I talk to everybody, somebody's gonna give me items, somebody's gonna give me a quest. And like the only reason you're interacting with the world in that capacity is because it checks a box and lets you get something that you actually want. Whereas you think of a game like, you know, I just described those games, but like maybe a more analogous example is something like Persona or like Fire Emblem, where part of the gameplay and of the reward of the gameplay is social simulation stuff.
The reason why I cared about Fire Emblem Three Houses at all is because I cared about the characters.
Exactly. And like Pokemon could do that, right? Like Pokemon is already a universe that has characters that people care about, right? Like they're capable of creating NPCs that have personality and that you actually, you know, want to interact with. Whereas like, you know, I
was sad that my Boltund died in my Nuzlocke. I hate Boltund. I think that Pokemon sucks. But I was so sad when freaking Outlet died.
It's the beauty of that connection. It's the beauty of Nuzlocke. They just make you so affectionate to your Pokemon, and then when you kill them, you just feel so bad.
True, it's very unfortunate.
But you'll always have them in your heart now. You know, like you made that connection.
R.I.P. Outlet. Also R.I.P. Carl. He doesn't have anything to do with this.
R.I.P. Baby boy.
That's true. R.I.P. all of the Bev boys, and also Bev girl. R.I.P. her too. But yeah.
But there's no reason that Pokemon can't do that, and I feel like they're getting closer because, again, right, the fact that this game is actually interested in creating characters rather than just like, here's a fisherman, here's a youngster, here's a lass, like,
right,
that's a step forward, and I think if we got to the point where we continue to have smaller casts like this, it'll be easier to do that. But I want that, like I want to be able to remember the name of the rival, like I keep forgetting Dawn's ancestor's name because Akari. Because she is an incredibly flat character, right? Like she has no personality.
I remember Dawn's name.
That's true.
Like I know her name.
And that's the thing, right? Like you think about I don't know, right? Like to me, the most iconic rival will always be Blue because Blue, like he had a catchphrase. He hated your guts. Like he was a character and you bounced off of that character, right? And so many of the other rivals are like the one in Gen 2 is like just a comically bad dude. So it's like he's got no depth. And then but
he has a tragic backstory. His dad died.
But that's all subtext. Like that's all fan theory, cool stuff. Like put that in the dialogue.
It's not fan theory. It's
literally
confirmed.
Offs himself in the video game.
I'm not saying that it's. You're right. I'm not saying that it's not true, but it's like that's not present in the narrative in the way which something like Fire Emblem is, right?
That's a Pokemon flaw. Like they have so much of that, and they kind of always have, but it's all lore. Like
it's all like behind a curtain.
Yeah, they're bad at incorporating lore into their story. And
I mean, like the fact that this game talks about the fact that every Pokemon is able to shrink themselves down, and that's why Pokeballs work, and that's a thing that's been like canon since the beginning. It's in that just recently Did You Know Gaming had that translation of like that original Pokedex book that was written like during the Red and Green days, and it's like the earliest stuff, and so much of it is stuff that is absolutely not canon anymore. That was there all the way back then,
right?
How many regular Pokemon fans, if you pulled them out of a lineup, would have been able to tell you that was a thing and that's how Pokeballs work?
2, 1, half of a Pokemon.
I didn't know that until I watched that video like a year ago or whatever, right?
I didn't know that either.
I was always like, oh yeah, it's technology. It shrinks them down. Yeah, like okay.
It's more clear in the manga though. Because like in the manga, absolutely. It's like they're literally just you can see through the Pokeball and they're just small in the Pokeball chilling.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess maybe I did know that and forgot it because I read Electric Tales of Pikachu when I was like 7 or whatever.
I watched a fan theory video. I think it might have been from Birdkeeper Toby saying that a lot of the energy that's in Pokeballs it has to do with like life energy or what's the whole story in Kalos about
like
infinity energy, something like that.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And that was the power that actually was able to take Pokemon in and out of the Pokeball. And now I've just gone, well, that was completely wrong.
But the thing is, like, it was
a good theory,
it also could not be wrong because this is like early days. They literally just invented Pokeballs, and they're like, oh, they work when they go in the Pokeball. I guess they're just able to shrink themselves.
Pokemon's also a multiverse, right? Like that's a canon thing.
Yeah,
so it's like that's
like
the other way that you can.
Dawns.
Like, that's why you can explain away everything. Like
your character is literally from the future,
right?
True.
Well, and
the
here's
whole storyline is about you being ripped from the sky, and literally in the first sentences of the game, Arceus is actually telling you that you are from. The future.
Having God on speed dial is wild. That's crazy that you got God on speed dial.
Oh, no,
I'll tell you what. That's one of the most. That's one of the things I've had the most trouble like believing is the whole like when he just pulls out the phone and everyone's like, oh, what an interesting looking map. Nobody's reacting to the fact that you have this extremely high tech piece of technology.
See, that's the thing. That's
so
that's a hang up I have on the opposite end with people. Whenever they complain about the phone, they're like, oh, the phone's working in the freaking like feudal Japan era or whatever. It's like, you talk to God.
I know. I buy the phone thing. I don't have the critique of, oh, how does it work? It's like, God superpower charged it. But that's what I'm saying. Charged forever.
Also, there are characters in this game that have seen probably not actually the god that we know is God. Like it's probably some other Pokemon. Like, you know, it's the Diamond and Pearl clans. They probably think God is Palkia and Dialga, respectively.
Spoilers.
I mean, it's in the game. They promoted it.
Kidding.
It's in all the trailers. But yeah, no, like they have seen God themselves. They have seen God. So like them seeing a phone is like, whatever. Like, that's all God.
It's just funny. It's because they're like, oh, that must be something that those Galaxy folks invented, huh? And I'm like, excuse me, the Galaxy team was useless before I showed up. All right. They're like, oh, apparently people can hold up to 6 Pokemon, but we've never had someone skilled enough to do it. I'm just like, okay, all right. This 15-year-old kid rolling up their sleeves to help all these grown adults.
Yo, I've been doing that since the age of 10. What have you been doing?
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, right.
True. Granted, that's par for the course. Really, the only game that doesn't treat you like you're 10 is Sword and Shield, and everybody hates it for that. Like every other game is like, oh, you're a 10-year-old, kill God, please. Like our current champion, he can't do it. He's been a trainer for longer than you've been alive. He beat all of our strongest trainers in our region. He can't do that. But you, 10-year-old that got your Pokemon a week ago, kill God, please.
All the champions in every other game is completely useless except Alola because there literally was not a champion.
Mm-hmm. Well, Alola
every other generation of champions useless.
Because Leon's like, man, I got this. Go finish your little gym challenge. I'll take out this Pokemon.
At least Lance is out there doing stuff. He's getting his hands dirty, right? Like he's out there like only liberating Pokemon and fighting criminal organizations.
That's a Gen 2 thing.
Yeah. In Gen 1, he just gets his clock cleaned by 2 children.
Mm-hmm. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Back to back, right? Like
that's a fact. He's had. He lose that was his worst day.
He loses.
He loses to Blue. He loses to Blue. He's like, can't be my worst day. You know, I only lost to I lost to a child, but like whatever. Yeah. And then he loses to another child immediately. That was because that's
like the first time you're like, hey, you know what? Young prodigy. It's the next generation. I can say I knew this kid when. Gonna be great to watch his career. And then it's like
the next kid that challenged
2 of them though. 2 of them though.
It's like rip, dude.
The disrespect. Can't be a coincidence.
Just gonna end this man's whole career. He's about to just go and he's gonna have to go become Batman because he's been disgraced.
And he's just gonna punch kids. Like every time he sees a kid, he's just gonna
hyper beam them, man.
Every kid who he ever interacts with, he's like every youngster Joe, he's just hyper beaming those rat attacks. He's like, I can't let these kids get one up on me.
That's a fact. That's a fact. But yeah, I mean, back to this video game. Okay, other thoughts. What were we thinking about? Like the gameplay loop of like the main goals. Like
I love the gameplay loop. I think that is the best thing about the game. I think there's so many things that are very slightly different, and every one of them I think is good. Yeah. I haven't encountered one change that to a core system that I haven't liked. Like the fact that you can throw balls at multiple Pokemon that are on the field and then just keep running. And if you got them, you got them. And if you didn't, you didn't, right? Like the fact that you can evolve Pokemon and teach them moves from a menu at your own speed at will. Yep. And if you don't want to evolve a Pokemon for whatever reason,
you don't have to press B every level that you go up. Yeah.
Incredible. Like those are just smart things. The fact, and I'm borrowing this language from Laura Kate Dale. They compared the way that you kind of like pick your abilities to kind of like, it's almost like a D&D character, like spell book. And it's like, oh, which ones do I want to use now? Like in this encounter. That's brilliant. I love that innovation. We don't need a move tutor and a move relearner and a move deleter. And it's all one place and you can get those things. And if you have a move, you can shift them out as needed. Those are all amazing changes because again, and I said this earlier, you're never forced to just be in a menu. You're never forced to be navigating through. And like, if you just want to keep catching Pokemon, battling, and then, hey, I'm hitting a pause point and I want to like now go in and do all the spreadsheety stuff. You can totally take it at that pace if that's what you want to do.
Right.
And that encourages you to just keep going. And I don't know about y'all. And I know Megaman, you had expressed this, I think off mic. I'm having that Breath of the Wild problem where I'm like, oh, right. this is where I'm supposed to go.
Mhm.
But every time I run towards it, I see a thing I didn't do yet.
Yeah.
I see a new Pokemon. I see, a resource that I want to farm, and I run off in the other direction, and I play for like an hour and a half. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm out of money in Pokeballs and stuff.
Right.
I can't go. I got to go back and start over. And like,
Yeah, it always starts like that. It's
obsessed
like,
with
oh
that.
man, I need more Vi, so I got to find more medicinal leaks or whatever, right? And then it's like, oh, but there's a freaking like Shinx over there. I didn't get the last Shinx Pokedex entry, and then Luxray comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I gotta battle that thing. Oh shoot, it's a freaking what are the Pokemon called? The strong angry versions of the Pokemon.
the alphas.
Alpha.
Yeah, and
Alphas?
it's an alpha Pokemon. It's level 50. Oh shoot, I got to use my whole team now. Oh man, I got a ground type attack. I gotta go back to the town. I got to get an earth type attack on my Pokemon. All right, I came back. They got Earthquake, but then I found Snorlax instead. But to get Snorlax, I gotta find. Oh shoot, there's Machoke right there. I'm gonna catch him. Like, everything loops into wanting to do something else, and that's like the best way to do open world games, in my opinion.
The thing that that got me distracted. So as Pete said, off the podcast, I was saying that last night I just decided that I didn't want to do any story stuff. I just wanted to literally see how it was exploring the world and see if you could have that Breath of the Wild moment around just wandering around and seeing if you can just get distracted. So I was like, right, I'm going to make a conscious effort just to do side quests and see how long it takes me to do some side quests. And one of the things that Trev pointed out in the recording chat is distortions. They are insane.
That's the weird like shield looking like force field things in the world.
Yeah,
I went
so it took a while to get started, and I think they only they show up on your map really early, but I think they only come alive at nighttime. And so it transitioned from that like late afternoon to the evening, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a Ursaring at level 35 and a Toxicroak at level 40 just beamed down and were there. And the next thing I know, I was just being attacked. And I was like, what is even going on? And those two just absolutely destroyed me. And I was down to my Chimchar because I had just done a side quest and got a Chimchar. And I was
I need to find that side quest.
What? Yeah, right?
That's awesome. I'll come back to that. There's two side quests that are real interesting. I'll come back to them in a second. And then once I got rid of the Ursaring and the Toxicroak, out of nowhere, two Licky-Lickies, a Lickitung, a Sneasel, and a Snorlax or something just beamed right in front of me. And I was like, I gotta get out of
here.
I gotta book it.
I can't be here right now.
Yeah, it was insane. And that's the but yeah, there's a side quest. You actually talked about the side quest on stream, AJ, about the Will-O-Wisps.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I just got that.
As Chimchar.
You gotta find all of them. You gotta find the 19.
No, it's literally one, and it's Chimchar literally sitting in a tree.
Oh.
The Will-O-Wisps is different than the thing that you're talking about, AJ. You're talking about the little purple things you got to collect.
Yeah,
that's a different thing.
So there's
some like random
one.
villager.
Yeah, and then there's another random villager that's like a bright red Will-O-Wisp that's in the in this particular area. And yeah, so that is Chimchar. So I have a Monferno on my team. Moral of the story, don't evolve Chimchar until you go back and show the lady, because now you have to find another Chimchar. I'm a little bit screwed there. But the other side quest that they get you to do is they literally get you to go find a shiny.
I just found that one too, I think, where they were like, it's this interesting
They just make it appear. They just make it appear. So awesome. You go to where all the Ponytars are, and then all of a sudden, it just the shiny just pops up. And if it runs away, you give it like 30 seconds, run back, and it's there again.
I wonder what the shiny rates are in this game, also, because like I was talking to Ian, and Ian also found it. I don't know if he did that quest or not, but he found a shiny Purugly. And I know multiple people that have gotten shiny super. Obviously, the game just freaking came out, so like that have already found shinies. So I wonder like what influences shinies, like what the rates are like and stuff like that.
I saw someone on Twitter literally say the first Wurmple they saw was a shiny Wurmple.
That's wild. What? Hopefully it evolves into Beautify, not Dustox, because Dustox.
And here's me played 13 hours of the game, and I still haven't encountered a shiny other than the mission that told me to go out and get a shiny Ponyta. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like how shiny hunting is gonna evolve since it's all overworld encounters. Like it's pretty cool.
Let's Go was like that.
Yeah, right.
And that was like one of the cooler games to watch people shiny hunting, because like that's such a sick moment. Like, oh shoot, the shiny, it's
there. It is
there. It is there. And it was like for so long, people were like, before overworld encounters actually were a thing in Pokemon, I was like, yo, they should do overworld encounters in Pokemon. And people were like, that will ruin shiny hunting. I'm like, are you stupid? Like, you're dumb. Like, you're big dumb, right? Because to me, in my head, it would be so sick to be on a vista somewhere, and I'm like, yo, what the heck? There's a shiny freaking Wurmple down there. Like,
there he is. Get him.
I'm like, that's so much doper than
sparkles.
just randomly happening upon it in grass. Like, that's a hype moment, because it's like, I didn't expect that thing, but it's not nearly as hype as seeing it beforehand. That anticipation of like, oh shoot, you get that initial burst, and then you have anticipation of like, I see that thing, I am going to get that thing. It's way more exciting. IMO.
And even when you're like out in the overworld, this is the other thing that I was picking up on. Like, you could have very overleveled Pokemon, but if you're trying to take on 4 at once, and there's 4 of them attacking
doesn't matter at all. Yeah,
it does not matter. Your level 35 Dewott can go down to 4 level 20 Paris.
I will say that's one thing that I don't like. Well, part of that I don't like. There's a lot of new systems in this game that there's something about the system that I'm like, you were almost there. You were this close to being there. And how they handle wild encounters is one of those things where it's like, I can throw out all 6 of my Pokemon at any other time. And I don't necessarily want to throw out 6 Pokemon to battle however many Pokemon they put, but at least let me throw out 2, you know?
Like, that's one thing I would like. Yeah, like it's kind of weird that there is an entire system built around having multi-battles, but you're like unable to throw a second Pokemon into the mix. Like, I would be totally fine if they limited it at
just
2,
limit it to 2, because it's like, the having 2 Pokemon is too much to you know, like, to copy
the trainer, right? Like, you can't divide your attention between more than 2 Pokemon.
Exactly.
I'd be cool with that.
That'd be fine. I'm down with that.
But
also,
I did.
Go ahead, Pete.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I did want to build off Mega Man's point. I really love how the level disparity is something that really, like, seemingly it doesn't matter as much as it used to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I found that a lot, where even when I'm, you know, when I was in the first area, right, and I had like maybe a 6 to 8 level lead on certain Pokemon, Wokos and things like that are like just not as common. Like, and a lot of the like first kind of moves that you get in every Pokemon game, I mean, moves in general, right? A lot of them have been changed pretty significantly, and like it seems though like the powers are bumped.
Doesn't always put you to sleep. Sometimes, well, I don't even think sleep exists.
Sleep isn't even a thing anymore. It's just drowsiness now,
and sometimes you don't move. And other times
it's like paralysis now,
exactly,
which is weird, but
I think it like weakens, or no, it makes moves do more damage to you. That's the additional thing.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. But yeah, but like Stealth Rocks, I noticed was different, where like
it's like
rather
than
spin.
like,
but it hits hard too.
Yeah.
It's like it hits like a real move, and then it's like a fire spin after effect, which is nuts. Like, that's so much more aggressive, and it totally changes the way you would use that in a competitive sense. So like, it's cool to see them kind of tear down some walls and rethink moves and rethink, you know, and not that they've never done those things, but like
literally all of it down. All of it.
It's great to see. I mean, you know, I think the one way in which this game does feel like Breath of the Wild to me is that thought process, right? Of like, when you think about what Breath of the Wild did and why it was special, was that it was like, okay, how do we boil down Zelda, something that has gotten kind of bloated and has been kind of stuck in a rut, and like boil it down to its core essentials, right? Like, what are the things that make Zelda fun, and how do we lean into that as much as possible? And I think this game learned that lesson and learned it well. It's just like, now a matter of
literally, whenever we talk about by we, I mean like me and Parker specifically, because we make videos about that type of stuff a lot, where it's like, yo, this game it needs to have its Breath of the Wild moment. And when people hear stuff like that, they're like, not every game needs to be open world. I'm like, that's literally not what we're saying.
That's not what's special about that game.
That's not what that means. It means what was the original vision for this game? If they had unlimited resources, what would they make Zelda into now? If Zelda didn't exist, but they had the same group of people that had the same lore ideas and characters and like the gameplay loop and all the other stuff, what would that game be now? And that's what the Breath of the Wild version of X game should be. And Pokemon, I think that like Arceus, it's on the right path to that. I think that there's still a lot more that they can like double down on. Because like Breath of the Wild, I feel like Skyward Sword did a lot of that of like, all right, but how can we reimagine this to make it work with like the Wii and like all the other stuff and blah, blah, blah. But the conclusions that they came to weren't fully thought out enough. Breath of the Wild is when they got to the point that it's like, okay, we're gonna like the snake's eating its tail. Like, here's this mechanic. We're completely reinventing it. Provided like what we're able to do with modern technology and all that other stuff, and that's what it is.
They took half-baked ideas and figured out how to like implement them in a way that was more satisfying.
Right.
Like you think about the stamina wheel, and I remember that being a thing. Like when they showed that at E3, everyone was like, "Oh no, like this is gonna be terrible."
It was literally just a hindrance in the game. It was like it's just to provide challenge. It's like arbitrary friction, but in Breath of the Wild, it's part of the gameplay loop. It turns every like traversal thing into a challenge. It's like I could get up there if I'm smart about how I like budget my resources, or I'll not get up there because I don't understand how to like, oh, okay, well, I can climb to that point, and that's a point of the wall that I can like stand on, get my stamina back. I can try to bomb like myself up there. I can see if I can climb up that wall and glide to this wall and stuff like that.
And if you can't do it, it presents a clear, like, you're like, but I will be able to.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the carrot stick thing that like makes an open world game like that satisfying. And I think this game flirts with that. Like it does it fairly well, where you're like,
right.
I had that moment earlier today where there was a level, like a higher level cliffside that I had seen. And I was like, oh, there's Pokemon I haven't seen up there and resources but I don't know how to get up there yet. And I ended up there at some point, along my journey. And I was like, oh my God, I'm looking down on that place I was before. And I had that moment of like, okay, like I'm starting to understand the map better and where things are in relation to each other. And I'm having those aha moments. And like the game is encouraging me to explore, because I keep going to different corners and finding a rare Pokemon that doesn't spawn very often. And I can't get it to come back. So I'm encouraged to come back. And I haven't seen Eevee yet, but like I saw Munchlax and he ran away, and
pain in my existence, man. I've only seen 3 Eevees and 1 ran away, and I've caught 2. I've got a Sylveon.
Oh,
what? I'm so jealous.
Also, another thing that is like that in this game is the size variance in this game. Whereas like Megaman, I don't know if you were still in the stream when I was like trying to get a Baneri. Like it was literally an anime episode. It was literally an anime episode of me trying to get a Baneri, and every time it runs away from me, and then the Baneri that I find is huge. It's this freaking giant Baneri. It is bigger than like most of my other Pokemon. Like this Baneri is gigantic.
Does that huge? Does that size stay consistent with the model? Like, I haven't really tried that out. Where like, because I found a Shinx that was an alpha Shinx that was bigger than my character, and I was like, oh, will he be that big if I throw him out? Like,
yes, he is. And it like lists, because this was something that I checked for earlier today, because I like didn't even think to look for that. I was like, does this Pokemon does its like when I look at its stats, or is its height consistent with its actual height? It's different. This freaking Baneri is like 5 feet. This
is like the first time I feel like that's ever really mattered.
Yeah.
One of the first side quests you do is literally catching a larger Weasel.
I still haven't found one. I've caught several that are large, but
2'8".
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the other part about it that is so sick, because when I first saw that quest thing, even though like in hindsight, Pokemon Company like directly, I'm like, I don't, Megaman, I'm pretty sure you saw it when I tweeted out like there's different size freaking Voltorbs, like hello, and there's it's not like a ones and zeros sort of situation of like, this is big Voltorb and this is medium Voltorb and this is small Voltorb. There's like a gradient there. It's like there's some that are 2 feet, there's some that are 2'4", you know, like that sort of situation. And that's
I've seen a 2'1" Weasel, a 2'2" Weasel, a 2'4" Weasel. This is, I only know this because I've been looking
for the bigger
height.
Megaman, I have caught every size from 2 to 2'7". Yet to catch the 2'8" yet. I'll get there one day.
2'8".
But that actually takes me back to something I wanted to say earlier when we were talking about the loop, right? The Pokedex, I love the way they've changed the Pokedex. Yeah. Turning that into like the main thing that you do is brilliant for a lot of reasons. Like story-wise, I really like it because it was always kind of a weird thing where it's like, yeah, like Pokemon exist and everyone has them and they're like ubiquitous in our culture, but we need to make a Pokedex again. Like, why is that a thing? It obviously makes sense here. Everybody in the world is like interested in it and learning more with you. And like those things all feel good. But gameplay loop wise, having the whole like, oh, there's all of these different little side quests that you can do of like catch 1, 10, 20 of them, you know, defeat them with a move that they're weak against, catch them at night, catch them off guard,
see them using this move.
All of those things I love for a few reasons, because it helps with creating that satisfying loop, because no matter where you go, you're like, oh, like I don't need to catch another Starly, but I'm here and there's 3 of them and I need to check this box yet, so I might as well do that. And I find myself right now, because I still haven't decided on my 6th Pokemon in my main party.
I don't even know more than one. I've caught multiple Pokemon, but the only Pokemon I'm like, this is going to be on my team is Typhlosion. That's literally it.
I keep subbing people out, but I have a couple that have become kind of like my squad right now. Like
I want to get a Goomy.
Idea on how my squad's going to look.
I want a Goomy. That's the other Pokemon that I know in the game that I want to get, but I have not found yet. I just saw that which it's the kid, the child,
the Cleavor.
He has a Goomy, and I was like, what? Like, that's not fair.
Oh yeah,
I want a Goomy.
I love a Goodra. Yeah,
because like I've got Quilava, Luxio, Buizel, Drifloon, and Stantler have been like the 5 that I've been using regularly, and then I've been just subbing out whatever the 6th slot is for a different Pokemon that I'm trying to evolve and fill out a dex page.
That's been my whole team is filling out the dex.
I've evolved like 13 Wurmples at this point or something, because I wanted to fill out all the Beautifly and Dustox lines. So like, I like that it's easy. It's kind of like that Death Door thing I said earlier, where it's like, I like that every run I feel like I'm achieving multiple things, because I'm catching Pokemon and filling in the decks, and I'm making money so that I can get more resources. The fact that you never have enough, you're always a little bit kind of broke. So at least early game, I really like.
Super hard to get money in this game, which is not a bad thing,
because there's like no trainers, right? Like you're one of like 10 people. Wow, you're sitting on a pile right now.
How many Pokemon have you caught? Like, Jesus Christ.
We got to do more side quests, I guess.
Yeah. Like, I
have
barely
63 Pokemon registered in the Pokédex.
What the heck? Oh no, I mean, like, how many Pokemon have you caught? Like, because there's
52.
The most Pokemon that I've caught, like, I mean, the most, like, I don't know, like, additional Pokemon of like species that I've caught is like maybe 3, you know, like
I've gone ham. Like
I still haven't, like, I haven't gotten to the point where I feel the need to be like, oh, there's a Pokemon, I'm going to catch that. More often than not, if I run into a Pokemon, I'm battling it, unless it's like a bigger version or something like that. But the only time I found a bigger version was just the first one. I found that first Baneri and I was like, oh shoot, I'm gonna get that.
I've been kind of like catching, like when I find a new Pokemon, I'm kind of catching as many of them as I can.
I only catch 1 so far,
and like I said, I think I released like 10 Bidoof, because I there's only 8 boxes. They're called pastures now.
Do they not give you more? Like
I don't know if they do, but I was halfway through it already, and I was like, I am less than 10 hours into this game. I got
up to the 8th pasture.
Oh my God.
Wait, well, they might give you more when you have more star
Like,
levels.
yeah, when your rank goes up.
Well, that's true. I'm star level 4, and I still have 8.
How are you only star level? I'm level 3, and I've caught like half as many Pokemon as you. I feel like
because he hasn't made as much
because
he hasn't made as much progress in the game, so he doesn't have like as many areas and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've literally only
That's wild.
really just opened up the second area.
Okay.
And most of my
which is like that's cool. That's cool. The
area.
fact that like there's that much like variance in our experience where it's like you're a higher level than me too. I'm also level 3. But we're both farther in the story than you are.
Yeah.
So,
And like I love that I felt conflicted when I unlocked a new area. I'm like, there's so much stuff I haven't done in the first one though. Like, should I just go back? And I'm like, I'll go back later because I know that I'm gonna keep unlocking. You know, like I haven't gotten bravery yet, so like I can't fly around. And I imagine once I have that, there'll be new areas I can access on that map. And
did you see my most recent tweet, Pete? By the way,
no. What was it?
Oh, you should have a look.
I'm gonna pull
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's
but also you dropped the ball. I don't think you were there. Were you there when I told Trev about what you could have did to catch it?
No.
You should have threw a feather ball at it.
I'll go back and see if I can find it. I'll see if I can go back to find it. So for those of you who are not following me on Twitter, one, follow me.
Okay, let's see.
And two,
you can pull it up. You could do a screen share thing. And they will see it on the video.
Oh my God. Wait, is that?
Well, Pete can pull it up since he already has it.
Yeah,
what the heck? Oh my God. Yeah. Okay, hold on. All right. Can I share?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you share.
So for those of you who are listening on the audio version, I'll give you a rundown of what happened. So literally I'm running around on my weird air, and all of a sudden I notice something in the sky, and it's literally a Gyarados flying around. Like it's nowhere near the water.
That is insane.
Just fly.
Yep.
And so my tweet said, so I think they took the flying type bit literally.
It's literal. It is literally
He's literally a flying type Pokemon. It's great. I have to leave in about 15 minutes. So
okay. Any like the last thoughts you gotta cram in or like
no, I like. I was gonna say about Pete's point around the Pokédex, like it gives you a very, very good reason to go out and catch multiple. When you release them as well, they give you it's called gravel. Yeah, and the gravel obviously helps you EV train your Pokemon. So
it's a different system, but yeah
I
still haven't even.
I consider it EV training.
It's the analog. Like it's absolutely
it's like the
evolution
and Let's Go and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And so it not only gives you a reason to release the Pokemon, it also gives you
Pete's video is gone.
Bye, Pete. Is audio gone as well? I know I can swear.
I don't know if
so yeah, not only does it give you incentivizes you to catch a lot because you want to release a lot to then get more gravel. Right. There's also 3 different types of gravel that I've noticed so far as well. And it all takes into consideration how much gravel you've actually put into each box. So like if, for example, I've been I chucked a couple in Luxray's attack stat because I was just like, I'm just going to test out this and just see what it's like and play around with a few things. And then like I went out, caught a lot. Like I said, I pretty much hit my 8th pasture and I was like, what happens if I release everything? And I released everything and some guy walked up and was like, here you go. And I was like, sweet. So
you get gravel for releasing Pokemon?
Yes. So not only is it like, sweet, I need to go out and catch more because I'm helping with the Pokedex, I'm earning money, I'm doing side quests, which is why I've got a lot of money. And my bag is like, I don't know how much you can raise your capacity.
How much have you spent so far? Like, what's the highest amount you've been allowed to spend?
So the last bag upgrade I think was about 5,000.
Okay, I think I'm like 1 behind you, and I've been thinking the same thing. I'm like, how How have
yeah,
I not
how am I
maxed
not capped
out
here?
yet?
Yeah.
Like, I think I got up to like 3,000, and I was like, it has to cap me soon. I don't want to spend all my money, like, but it's got to be soon, right?
And basically, every time I go back to the base, I spend half of my money maxing out my bag as much as I can, and then I'm like, okay, leave a couple grand.
I've
so
been
I can buy
spending
some
a
more
lot of my money
Pokeballs
on
and-
revives because I'm violent.
Yeah, revives. For anyone who's new playing the game, revives are key. Get some revives.
It seems like I don't have as much money as Mega Man has. This 1% over here. But revives seem like they cost so much more, but they're literally the same amount. Like,
it's just because when you think about it, right? Like the primary way that you make money is through Pokemon battles historically. And I don't know about y'all, but I think I've battled 4 people. Like
I don't think I've battled really anybody outside of like the story encounters, and I don't think they give you money for when you beat them.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
That's true.
So literally the only way you get money is by catching Pokemon. So like we talked about the gameplay loop. They've been real smart about it, because you kind of start, you walk into the game, you kind of let loose out of the tutorial, and you're like, right, the whole aim of the game is to catch Pokemon. And then you start thinking, because I started thinking this after a while, why, other than completing the Pokedex, why go out and catch Pokemon? And it wasn't until I was off stream and I was playing, and I was really focusing on the outside of the story, which is why I wanted to go outside the story and have a bit of a play around. Is the main reason to go catch Pokemon is fill out your decks, release them so you can get some gravel to build up your main set of Pokemon, whether that's 3, whether that's 6, or whether that's just 1. And then you get money. And then not only you can buy moves with the money, you can get wishes so that you yourself, the player character, can take more hits.
I didn't even know about that.
Less damage.
So
there's a lady in the back right corner, pretty much.
She's over by the move person, the one who does all the, like, she's like got a little shrine kind of in the corner, and there's like 3 different charms you can buy from her, and one will like keep you from dropping items. It's and one of them
I experienced that the first time ever today. I was very sad. I lost all my revives. It was so tragic. I'm like, go. And then they were like, they were talking about how people online can get your stuff. I'm like, yo, somebody get my stuff.
I like that feature too. And the fact that like you get points for that you can trade for like rare items, like evolution stones. And I don't know,
you can, buy like rare candies. I still haven't used any rare candies yet.
Did you notice that they also sell a bunch of the evolutionary items, and they have a couple that are for the Porygon ones. And I'm just like, how does that make sense?
Yeah, true.
You can trade Pokemon in this game.
No, but like, how does it make sense that Porygon exists? Like,
because he was made by a computer program.
That is a very fair point. I didn't think about that.
But my guess is he probably comes through one of the zones.
Yeah.
He's from the future,
right?
So other than that, like, as I said right at the beginning, before my final thoughts, before I leave you to finish off your thoughts and go through Q&A, is literally, this game is no by means perfect, but it shows that the Pokemon Company and Game Freak have really listened to fans and gone, kind of stripped it away and go, right, how can we make the Pokemon experience a little bit different, refresh it all. It's kept some of the mechanics that people like, and it's made it really fluid in the way that you battle, catch, collect items. You know, even though, like, there's so much time where I've just run along and I'm just throwing all my Pokemon in different directions, and then I'll throw some Pokeballs because, you know, you're hitting a tree over there, or you see a Paris and you're like, oh, I might need another one of those, so I'm just going to throw it there. I got Paris on my brain because I've been fighting a lot of them recently.
You don't say.
And yeah, exactly.
For all your listeners, he's fighting a Paris right now.
And I'm really excited to see what they do next. And if they continue with the Legends concept, there is so much lore around other generations that they could easily touch on. You know, the 3 dogs and Johto.
Show me that Pokemon War. Let's do it. M-rated Pokemon.
Yeah, Gen 6, literally. Pokemon War there. Kirim has big backstory and lore, like literally eating people. So if they're taking that kind of darkish turn, they could probably go that
They're going
way.
to say death way more in that game than this game.
They're going to literally, you're going to walk in and Kirim's there munching on a person. I've called it here.
Whoa, Pokemon's getting edgy.
Yeah, but
it's all that the game, the people that made the game with the Pokemon with a gun, or like they don't literally have a gun, but you shoot them with a gun.
Exactly. So my final thought is, for anyone who's listening to this and wants a different take on a Pokemon experience and likes the open worldness, give it a go.
Especially, I would say, especially if you're
worth
tired of the current formula. Like if you're
100%.
tired of that, play this game.
Yeah. I don't think it'll meet 100% of your expectations if you fully drank the hype Kool-Aid, but I think
absolutely not.
If you go in with reasonable expectations in terms of what is going to be good and what is going to be, still
a work in progress.
Yeah, right. Like one of those underbaked ideas. You'll have a good time.
Yeah, because I think that's like the thing that's frustrating about like whenever a new Pokemon game comes out and there's this whole freaking discourse that's happening, like, and we got to deal with it because the thing that we chose to do, like we make content and all that stuff, right? It's like trying to strike this balance of like, I am completely okay with criticism. That's most of what my contribution to the internet is, criticizing literally Pokemon. I have hundreds of hours, maybe thousands at this point, if we're talking about streams and podcasts and all that stuff, of me criticizing Pokemon. But the problem is how people criticize things. It's like they talk about it from this like authoritative, like you would think that they make video games, they run a business, they understand how like controlling a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate works. And it's like, you don't understand that. And there's reasons why this company is doing the things that they do. And I also understand that there's a lot of multi-billion-dollar corporations that we do get to see more of the inner workings of them, and they do work in a way that is not kosher. Like they're not super cool. So a lot of people have the habit of like assuming that it's like, oh, well, Pokemon makes all this money, so that means that they're probably hoarding this money and they're just rich for being rich and all this. And it's like, no, it's just a whole different, it's a cultural thing. There's a lot of stuff that contributes to it, and it's not all like this malicious situation. And that's the main thing that I usually want to underscore whenever I like talk to people about their criticism, because it's all valid. I don't have a problem with anybody saying anything about like, oh, I wish this was better, blah blah blah. It's just how like be
constructive.
Be constructive.
Yeah, it's like, are you doing those things because you care about, or I guess I should say, are you saying those things because you care about Pokemon and you want it to be a better product? Because either you enjoy it or the people who enjoy it you think they deserve better, whatever, right? Like there's a conversation to be had there, right? Like the game is not above critique, but there's a real difference between saying those things and in the way that I think we have during this conversation with like but think of the possibility, versus you wanting to be somebody who has
game sucks. Game doesn't have the same
15
number
seconds
of pixels as the other game that I like on the other console made by other corporation. Game trash. That's and like, that's not valid criticism.
No, and I think a lot of those people, I think it's pretty transparent what they're doing, right? Like you're hate farming, right? Like you're saying that so you can have your 15 seconds on Twitter and, dunk on people and get quote tweeted by everybody in the industry being like, look how dumb this person is. And then that person is like, yes, give me attention, like give it to me. That's what it's about, like
everyone wants to be famous on the internet. Let's be honest.
Yeah. And I really don't think that a lot of that criticism comes from a place that's genuine, like, and I don't think everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? But like, I don't know, if the only way that you're interested in expressing it is hyperbolically, I can't help but feel like you're doing it for attention rather than to have a conversation about how a thing that you like or want to like could be better, right? Like there's a constructive way to do that.
Exactly.
Anyway, on that note, I'll leave you two for the rest of the podcast. AJ, thank you for having me on.
Of course.
Great chatting with you, man.
I'll talk to you guys.
Everybody follow Megaman, all things. It's linked in the description.
Bye.
Bye. Now we can argue about Pokemon. You're wrong.
Let's go. I can't believe we've been on the same page for like everything. It's like we haven't had our
page a lot, but it's just like usually our things that we go back and forth on is what we kind of already went back and forth on. It's just like how much faith we have, because like you're more on the like skeptical side of like I don't think they're going to do all that, and I'm more like I'm sold that they're going to do it, and I have been sold pretty much since Sword and Shield.
It's so funny because like you're right, like we do agree on most things. Like I think like we have a very similar vision for where Pokemon should go, but I think it's always funny that there's at least one thing where we'll be like, oh, like we have to like argue about the minutia of like
that's where that's all of it. That's all the arguments. It's minutia. It's like it's not like we want the like entirely different things. It's just like,
does this happen in 3 years or 5 years?
Exactly.
Like...
exactly. That's what it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's plenty more to talk about with this game that we haven't talked about. Is there anything that immediately comes to mind for you?
We haven't talked a ton about, I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the move stuffs, but how do you feel about the changes to the battle system with regard to the, strong style, the agile style, and how that affects turn order and all that stuff? Because that's something that, I don't know if this is the first place it's been done, but the first place I remember experiencing that was in like Bravely Default. And I loved that combat system. I thought it was one of the better turn-based systems I'd experienced that wasn't Pokemon. So seeing that kind of brought in here, I'm really liking the way it adds strategy to, if you're fighting a weaker Pokemon, you can hit them with the strong style and knock them out real quick, or you can sneak in that extra turn. Like, how's that landing for you?
So for the most part, the only time that those styles come into play for me in terms of like it being like this useful thing of like, oh, I'm definitely going to use this is when I'm catching a Pokemon. Where it's like, oh, I know if I do this move, it's like a super effective move. If I do the agile style, it'll do just enough damage to get them to the point where I can throw a Pokeball at them. Or the opposite side of that of like, this is like a low damage move like it's resisted. But if I do the strong style, like that sort of situation. I think that is kind of overblown in terms of like the amount of depth that it adds. It could be like more like better fleshed out if they didn't take out some of the stuff that they took out in the game, and it was less, and maybe this is just because I'm new to it, but it was like less ambiguous of like why a move that you do agile style puts you where in the like pecking order of when you attack and why.
I am willing to bet that there is a system there that we just don't fully get yet. Because like you think about how much, like even all the way back to Gen 1, right? Like how much thought Game Freak puts into the mathy bits of systems at play. I have to imagine that there is some, like maybe it's like a stat thing, like, based on, because like it could be like the way that crits were based on speed back in the day, right? Like maybe it is, because I've noticed with like Weasel having like stuff like Aqua Jet, I feel like you can sneak in extra turns with things that already have priority by doing the agile style. And like, excuse me, it seems like there's more to it than I'm fully able to wrap my arms around yet.
Because like for me, the thing is like I'm always talking about how Pokemon is literally math. Like it's just math. It is like a series of like my +2 is better than your +2, and like
it's basically what if chess had more math in it.
Exactly. And the thing is like I don't not want Pokemon to have math. I just want it to have more complex math that it's like enough systems that the fact that it's math is masked from me. Like I want to be able to understand it intuitively and be like, well, fire does this to that, but I shouldn't understand it to that much of a degree of like, oh, well, that does +5, so I'm definitely going to win here or whatever. It's like man, well, it's raining right now. I have a rock near me. If he does flamethrower and I move towards the rock, like that sort of thing, like being able to like think about like the spatial awareness of it all, and like what a move would do like in real life, like Breath of the Wild sort. Like there's a lot of math in Breath of the Wild, but you're never thinking about that. You're just thinking about the fact that it's like, oh, I have my metal sword. It's about to strike lightning right now. If I throw this sword, it's going to blow up the guy because of the lightning that's going to hit him because of the sword. Like
I would love if Pokemon got to a point where
it would be
where physics mattered.
Sick. It would be so sick. Pokemon is like the chemistry engine in Breath of the Wild makes so much more sense in Pokemon than it does in Breath of the Wild. That would be so sick.
like it would be really cool to see like something as simple as like, oh, like, hey, I'm fighting this water Pokemon and it's in a river, right? And like that gives,
and I'm going to thunder shock it and it will die.
Yeah, right. Or like, oh, I don't have an electric type, and like, because of that, it has like a speed advantage because it's in the water and it can move quicker. Like things like that would be awesome. I would love that.
It would be so
and then like again, right? Like when you're having a competitive battle, right? Or like you're in a gym or whatever, right? It was like, oh, well, this is a sterile environment where like you can't take advantage of those things, or maybe in some gyms you can.
I was about to say, or the opposite of that, where it's like, because there's definitely stuff like that, like me, right? Like I play Smash Brothers pretty competitively, and there's things that like a normal player would see and it's like, well, this might be like unfair to certain people, but a lot of the challenge is to understand like, okay, well, this is a thing that this person had, like Joker's Arsene's not banned, and it's not even like this particularly scary thing because people understand like it gives him a boost for sure, but it doesn't make him invincible, and he still has his own weaknesses, and there's still things that you can exploit about that thing. So like, even if it's things like in the anime, if there's a freaking sprinkling system, they don't have to take the sprinkling system out if I'm battling a human player, because the human player knows there's a sprinkling system. So either do something to stop your opponent from attacking it, or don't bring your rock type, or give your rock type a freaking raincoat. Like
sure.
Like
and I think there's room for them to like continue to experiment with some of those things, and it feels like they're thinking about that stuff in a way that they haven't before, because even just as simple as the fact that like the battles take place in the real environment that you're in. Like I had in a situation earlier where I got attacked by an alpha scyther, and it was like level 40 or 50 or something. So it had like 30 levels on everything on my team, and it had advantage. So it attacked my Stantler, and I was just like, he's going to one-shot him. So I just started running away, knowing that when he faints, I'm going to have him, and I can already be a couple steps out where I can start running. And like,
and that's also another cool thing that like just makes sense in the world of Pokemon, where it's like there's so much that's cool about Arceus is that it takes away the unnecessary friction. Like there's no good reason for why I shouldn't be able to run away from literally every Pokemon. There's no good reason for that. There's no good reason for why when I lose all my Pokemon, I white out. Like, why is my trainer affected by the fact that I have no Pokemon left? But in this game, they made sense of that. I could lose all my Pokemon as long as I don't get hit and I don't get knocked out. I can.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I haven't had that happen yet. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I like that.
But yeah, it's like there's so many things like that, and like something that Trev in the chat has talked about a lot and that has come up a lot is like how fluid this game is. There's so much stuff that's just like intuitively you can be like, oh, I'm going to switch my Pokemon, and because you know how to throw your Pokemon out, like, and there, in fairness, some people don't make this connection. They still have that like going through menus like line of thinking, but like to change your Pokemon, you could change your Pokemon the way that you throw out your Pokemon outside of battle too, that
took me a minute to understand how that menu worked. Like it took me a minute to realize that it was the right trigger, and I was like,
and not
why is this on screen? Like I can clearly interact with this. How do I do it? Like
yeah, and I think that there's also so Bob Wolf from Wolf Den, everybody like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. He was streaming the game yesterday, and he's like this interesting case of like this game answers a problem that he had with Breath of the Wild, but also at the same time, it brings up a problem by doing that, right? So Breath of the Wild, he doesn't really like that game. He has this whole meme of like, it's good. You know, Bob says that a lot about games that people like a lot that don't really gel with him, but he acknowledges like, okay, I understand why people like this game. And that's that he doesn't think about like interactions in that way. Like sometimes he doesn't think literally enough. Sometimes he thinks too literally. Like his whole thing, like his hang up with Pokemon is like, oh, well, water doesn't conduct electricity. It's the stuff in water. So water shouldn't be weak to electricity, you know, like that sort of thing, right? Where it's like, yeah, I mean, scientifically you're right, but like kind of you're not, because when are you really going to encounter water in the wild that is distilled water that has nothing in it that conducts electricity? You know, like it conducts electricity because of the things that it's so like, because it's conducive to so many things being in it that are conducive to electricity, you know?
And it's like you would think, right, that like a living being that has water power would also fall under that umbrella, right? Exactly, like it would have those same things.
Exactly. It's
that's
not
such
like
that's such a funny thing, though.
Yeah,
to be like,
flying type
this
Pokemon
is my problem.
Yeah, exactly. Or flying type Pokemon. It's like, well, he's not grounded. It's in the air. The reason why electricity works is because you're grounded and blah, you know, like that sort of situation. Or not thinking again literally enough of like, oh man, like the metal or whatever, I don't want to be near the metal when it's touching another thing that's being electrocuted or shocked or whatever, right? Like that sort of situation. But also, so like he wants the game to tell him these things, but when the game tells him too much, it's like, this game's poorly designed. It's like, all right, like this game, it definitely tells you too much, as we talked about, right? But also, it's not Breath of the Wild where it tells you nothing. So it's like this weird middle ground, and it was interesting watching him play through the game and like getting through that.
That's a tough line to walk too, right? Because it's like with Breath of the Wild, it basically tells you nothing, and that's kind of that is why that game is pleasurable.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, like the magic of it is you being like, you brought it up earlier, like, oh, I wonder if I light a fire, will the heat make me be able to fly higher? Oh yeah, it does work that way. Like you want to like have questions and then experiment and be rewarded for that experimentation.
Right.
And I feel like Pokemon doesn't need to have a 1-to-1 for that, but again, like this is something you and I have talked about.
I think it should.
it should, and I think it would benefit from having more.
Because there's a lot of stuff in Pokemon that has those moments, like that first moment that I talked about, where it's like, how do I heal my Pokemon? Oh, I can throw berries. Maybe I can throw the berry and then
it should work that way.
Yeah, like that sort of stuff.
And like things like it's kind of, I get why they limit it this way for like story progression, but the whole like, oh yeah, you can only ride Pokemon after you get Weird Ear. It's like, well, I have a Stantler, and I'm 15 years old. Why can't I ride that? You know, like it just doesn't. You know, there are still those friction points that kind of.
They just need to come up with a better solution that feels natural.
Yeah, and I want to get to the point where when I have a question of like, will this work? The answer should always be yes.
Yeah, exactly. If it's not always yes, it's usually yes. Because Breath of the Wild, it's not literally always yes, but it's usually yes.
It's like, yeah, but more often than not.
Yeah, it's like 99% of the time is yes, but sometimes they tell you no.
Like when you have that moment where you're like, I wonder if I can attach balloons to this raft and then make a flying machine, and that actually works.
And it works,
Okay, yeah, this game is gonna let me do almost anything I can think of.
And then you get inside a shrine and it's like, why can't I climb up this wall?
Exactly.
That sort of thing. So it's like there's like small instances where they tell you no, but they're small enough that like you don't even think about that, right?
Right. Yeah. And I would love for Pokemon to at least get closer to that.
Because there's so much stuff in Pokemon that, again, it's like, well, why does that not like? So HM, something I've talked about so much, and they've figured out similar solutions to or things that like touch on these solutions with other series, like in Pokemon Rangers, right? Like they have such a better solution for HMs. It's like, oh, there's this this tree that fell and you can't get through the tree. How do I get through the tree? Oh, I can burn it down. Oh, but this Pokemon doesn't have strong enough fire to burn this big tree trunk down. So I need a Pokemon that's a different stage evolution. So Torchic can't burn it, but Combuskin can, you know, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't fly if I have a Pidgey, but if I have a Pidgey, I might be able to fly, you know, that sort of situation, rather than being like, you got to get the disc, dude. If you don't have the disc, you can't get to the thing.
Yeah, and I would love to have some more like kind of common sense answers to player questions like that, you know? Because to your point, like the world is so well defined in so many ways that like I want the game to acknowledge that more, you know? And I think like the way that you interact with the town, I think is a great example of that, where it's like, oh, like we're building out this facility, more people are moving here, we need to plant more crops, we need a ground type Pokemon. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. Like that's another one of those like natural
I just gave
things
him more
where,
type Pokemon today.
and like that makes sense in universe. It's a satisfying quest, and it's something where like you can feel like the labor that you're putting in is like material in a way beyond filling up your decks or your box or whatever. And like those are cool things. Those are things that make the world feel more like a world and less like a video game where I am projecting onto a world, which that worked on the Game Boy, right? But like now we know that we can go deeper than that, and it's rewarding to even have our toe dipped in that possibility now. So like
exactly,
let's, you know, like it's exciting to think like what does this look like, you know, a generation from now, 2 generations from now, maybe more, and it gets more and more exciting, I think, the more you think about it. Right?
And the like, to their credit, and something that I like hinted at earlier a little bit, so much that is exciting about this game is that a lot of the mechanics that are very cool in this game are informed by other Pokemon games.
Yeah, they're not like, brand new. They're just, they finally figured it out.
The Pokedex is literally just new Pokemon Snap in the video game. Like, it's just new Pokemon Snap, and that is brilliant. Like, that is a very good idea for them to do. And I think that it would be great if Pokemon was built out like that, where we do have moments like there's Pokemon Legends Arceus, and then that becomes like built into another game, or there's Pokemon Snap and then that's built into another game, you know, that sort of thing, where everything is built up from the outside in, you know.
Oh, this is cool. Trev in the chat said with the farming quest, they gave them an alpha Pokemon and the game actually acknowledged it, and there was like unique dialogue for that. Like, that's awesome.
Right? I wonder if that like has like ramifications.
Does that impact crop yields,
like,
you think?
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, if that makes your farm better than ours, because I gave them like an extra weasel that I had.
if it doesn't, that would be a really cool thing moving forward to like have incentives like that. Right. Yeah. And it's like, and again, that's probably a thing that will happen. That seems like a natural evolution of a system that they implemented for the first time here, of like having your Pokemon have, well, maybe not the first time, because there were those missions you could send them on in Sword and Shield, but like having your Pokemon provide value to you beyond, if they're not actively in my party, they're doing nothing.
Yeah. And also like there's another thing in this game, right, where it's like you can send all your Pokemon out, right, but they just stand there. And like, even like when you interact with them, you have 2 options. You can talk, you can speak with them. And then once you speak with them, you can press the X button, or it's the X button. And then you're like, yeah, let's go. And those are the things that you could do with your Pokemon. Like, and then I walk away from our Pokemon and they just stand there. Why?
Right. And it's like, you know, obviously it would be great to have a Pokemon follow you around in the overworld. We always love that. And they bring it back and they get rid of it. And they bring it back and they get rid of it.
But in this instance, right, like usually it's like, it's a complaint that is like pretty universal, but like it's a complaint that really doesn't matter in every other game. Cause like, it like the version of that feature that everybody has always wanted is that, right? But in this game, it could be so much more than that. If your Pokemon are following you around and they see a tree and they're like, oh, shoot, I'm going to go attack that tree. And then the other Pokemon's like, oh, I see that gem over there. I'm going to attack that. Oh, shoot, there's a berry right here. I'm going to pick that up. Like,
or like, you know, I would love for them to like experiment with some kind of like basic like pet simulator type mechanics where it's like have some Tamagotchi level stuff where it's like, Oh,
Put
okay.
Nintendo. Everybody wants Nintendo. I see so many people talking about putting Nintendogs on Switch. Just make Nintendogs in Pokemon.
I think like something like that could be really interesting where like if you have, because obviously they, Sword and Shield, you had like the camp interactions and those are pretty cool. I think they're still a little bit
Yeah, it's like a frail version of like what Nintendogs even is. Like,
yeah, and
there's
like
so much more depth in Nintendogs than that, which is
and some of those things I'm not really that interested in, right? Like I'm not that interested in like playing catch with my Pokemon and stuff like
and
that.
I don't mean like literally in that sense.
No, but
I think in interacting with your Pokemon outside of battle could be a pretty natural thing to put into the game.
Yeah, like the idea of making your Pokemon more like characters in their own way, I think would be really cool. And like something I'm thinking of is like like that again, like the Tamagotchi thing where like imagine if you have Shinx, for example, right? They in this game, they characterize, Shinx they're pretty aggressive, they attack people, they're hard to control, like they're really more for like a more advanced trainer. It would be neat if like you catch a Shinx and if you have it follow you, it goes and picks fights.
It just Pokemon. Attacks. Exactly. And even more than that, that's another example of something that I'm like, they almost got there. They almost did it. The fact that it's like Shinx are super aggressive. They almost got there. Because why does Shinx need to be aggressive unilaterally? Like every Shinx is aggressive, really?
Yeah.
Why is not some Shinx? Because this is another thing that they already have a system in place that tells you like this Pokemon's naive. This Pokemon's timid.
It would be
why not take
to see
that
those
information
things
and see that in game and not just when you encounter them, because that's probably the next half step. Next time we'll probably see that, and it's like, oh shoot, this Pokemon's brave. I can see that because it like ran up to me or whatever, right? But then you catch it, and then all of that information is wiped out. There's nothing that tells me that as my Pokemon, it's brave. Imagine
if you have a Pokemon who's brave, right? So like in the overworld, when you get attacked, they jump out of their ball and they initiate a fight to defend you. Like little things are when they're out, they do that, right? Like those would be cool things that would allow you to, have more water cooler moments, have more just like, oh, this is an organic event that happened that creates a memory with this Pokemon for me, right? In the way that you felt that with like the Nuzlocke, right? Because like there's a permanence, there's a tangibility. It feels more like this is a Pokemon with a personality versus, a stat value that I'm using in this video game,
Trev brought up 2 points that are good. He said it's more animations is why, for sure, definitely. Which is why I think that Pokemon should like build from the outside in. It should like do these things where it's like, even if like the mainline games become like smaller in scope in terms of like each mainline game has 200 Pokemon in it, right? And then they reuse those 200 Pokemon animations for as long as that generation is or whatever, right? Because once you do the animation once, you have the animation. Just reuse the animation. Why does
just
a
keep building on the
need
library
to move differently from the other Bulbasaur in the last gen? They don't need to do that. It's still a Bulbasaur, like just do the work up front, and then you benefit off of that work whenever another thing comes out that uses that,
There's a comment from Alec in the chat who says, okay, you guys are kind of asking for Digimon World, and those are not very fun games. First of all,
no.
Slightly disagree. Some of those games are fun, but they're janky, and I acknowledge that. But it's not like one for one that, right? It's like, how do you take things like that and implement them in a game that is inherently about capturing monsters and forging relationships with them? Right. Why can't I more tangibly forge relationships with them beyond a stat value that goes up whether or not I let
beyond them telling me that I'm forming a bond with this Pokemon? Why can I not see that in real time?
And like, I would love, we have so many cutscenes. Like, why are there no cutscenes with me and my Pokemon interacting? Or like, when I have a big battle, why doesn't my Pokemon come over and like, give me a nudge or whatever, right? Like, have more interactions between the player character and Pokemon.
I don't want to clean my pot. I'm not. See, that's the thing. We're not asking for that. I'm not saying that literally everything about Nintendogs or whatever needs to be in a Pokemon game. I'm saying that like line of thinking, that like gameplay loop of like, I'm building a bond with this creature, and there's reward from that. Whether
it's not like I want a pet sim per se. It's more like I'm training a Pokemon, right? When you train an animal in real life, there's elements to you building a relationship, establishing trust, learning their personality. I would love to see some of those things reflected in a tangible way where it feels like if I have a Shinx that's adamant, it behaves differently than a Shinx that's calm, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That would be cool. That would add a layer of depth beyond number values and
again, the stuff that they already have, they already do that. There's Pokemon characteristics, but you don't see it. You're told it. Show don't tell. That's what I want.
Yeah, let's take that subtext and make it text.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the other thing that Trev brought up, he said, imagine seeing one Starly step up when the rest run away. Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that.
Right.
Each Starly should act like its own being, like it's like I'm a Starly, so therefore I must act like every other Starly, and
I've had moments like that where I'm projecting onto the game. Like I had an interaction where I was I went and caught a Ponyta, and then I saw an Alpha Rapidash around a corner, and I was like, oh no, I must have just caught its baby. I gotta run. Like those are things that cool, just make that real though, right? Like you're already setting up moments like that.
To their credit, it sort of is like that, but it would also be sick if sometimes, and it wasn't even like a game like mechanic, like universal thing, but just because like I had this moment and you didn't, like in your iteration, Rapidash stuck up for Ponyta, but what if in mine Ponyta stuck up for Rapidash? Like that sort of thing. It was like a Chihuahua, like complex of like, I'm small, but I'm going to defend you. Like, and the Rapidash is like, it's still more powerful, and it's still like, everything like, do what you got to do, and then you take out Ponyta, and then Rapidash is pissed. Like that would be sick. Like,
I think those are not things that I think are like unreasonable to ask for.
I think it would be unreasonable to expect it now, but to like throw it out into the world and let them know that's like, this is something we're interested in, I think it's fair.
I mean, like you look at like the anime, any form of Pokemon media that isn't the games. And I mean, the games tell you this, right?
Yeah.
They tell you that Pokemon are your best friends, and bonds between humans and Pokemon are so deep and blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Like, give me that. I want to feel it. You know?
Exactly. All I want for Pokemon is for Pokemon to be more like Pokemon. That's like whenever I bring up things that I'm like, yo, this would be so sick if they did X, Y, and Z. It is literally never like, yo, it would be so dope if they did the thing that they do in Final Fantasy 12. Like, I don't care about that. I'm like, it would be so dope if they did what they did in episode 113 of the anime. Like it's like
I want every Pokemon town and city or whatever to feel like the first 20 minutes of Detective Pikachu, where I'm just like, oh, look at all these little moments that are happening everywhere.
Exactly.
Like, those are the things that I feel like I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, I think it's a good time to transition into Q&A and then wrap up.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've been talking about this game for like 2 hours.
It's true. I mean, we know what's gonna happen. Parker had a second part to this question. He said, also worst pizza topping.
I feel like this is like that's a bad one. They're up there for me. I think this is like a very basic answer, but I don't like pineapple just because
it's a war. It's a war.
I don't like sweet on pizza,
Mm-hmm.
That's just that, like, and I feel that same way about like, I don't know.
Bell pepper.
Sure. Yeah. Like I don't like that kind of flavor profile being added to a pizza. If I'm adding anything, I want something that's like more
savory.
salt. Yeah. More savory.
I feel that. Yeah, I think I'm sticking with anchovies though. I don't fool with the anchovies.
Too salty. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, big time. True Fernie says, I know it's too soon to ask, but after Arceus, what do you think Gen 9 is going to look like? Gameplay, mechanics, design, etc. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but I do think that we're going to see Arceusisms in Gen 9. If not, it just literally just be like a more like fleshed out Arceus.
Yeah, I think I would love to see them take what we have here and kind of like adapt some of that to the more like traditional 8 gym structure kind of thing, where like, you know, in each section of the world, basically, you have kind of like a self-contained open area that includes a hub town or a hub city, and then there's like a wild area around it, and each of those is like their own biome, and you kind of, you know, have more trainer battles and some of the other things that have been kind of stripped away in this game. I think that would be cool. It's kind of like very similar to what I feel, you know, is exciting about the idea of like a Breath of the Wild 2, of like, we stripped all those conventions out and they're gone now,
yeah,
right?
Now, what does the Breath of the Wild version of those things
look like?
Yeah.
And like the idea of like, you know, maybe it is like you can take the gyms in whatever order you want, or whatever, like little things like that, oh, we're going back to the formula, but we're also still shaking it up. We're also still trying.
We're back on the formula, but the formula is different now.
Yeah, it's the new Coke, but good. I think
this sort of feels like that. Like, to me, the like, everybody's bringing up the Monster Hunter comparison and obviously the Breath of the Wild comparison, but I can't help but to compare this game to so many other Pokemon games. Like, this to me feels the most like Sun and Moon than anything. Like, this is just Pokemon Sun and Moon, which is wild to me that people love this structure, but it's like the structure Sun and Moon, dude. It's like the totem Pokemon better. Or it's because mechanically I think it's better.
And again, story-wise, right? Like, the story's leaner, there's less downtime, there's less waiting.
I like that. Alex likes the Sun and Moon story. I liked it the
first time.
Yeah, Ultra Moon, playing through Ultra Moon, I think hurt my opinion of the game. Alex said that that Sun and Moon story is worse. I don't know, I didn't pay attention to know that it was worse, because by the time I played through that, I was annoyed I was just mashing through. I'm like, I know, I played this, I did this already. Oh, new thing. I know.
Please give me a skip cutscene button.
Yeah,
that would be an innovation.
I played this game before option in the game. You know,
yeah,
that game could have been DLC and it would have been sick. We know that now in hindsight. But yeah, no, like as far as like structure, like it's literally Sun and Moon, which is a good thing. I like that. I think it makes sense. But also, like, if they did this and then they added the gyms back and like what the gyms look like, I think it would be even better.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. You know, I think giving those things that have become stale a new lease on life, I think is a natural next step. Right after you have something that's wildly innovative, it's like, all right, cool. Like, now, what are things we've stripped that we can try reintroducing and seeing like how they feel, you know?
Because like, in fairness, like with Breath of the Wild, I don't think that the stuff that became stale was necessarily what they took away. And I think it's the same thing for Pokemon. Like, I don't think the trainer's journey is stale. I think that the means to that end is. Like, battling in Pokemon is not fun. Like, it's not fun in the way that playing Breath of the Wild is fun. It's fun in the sense that's like, oh, I beat you and I built a better team and blah, blah, blah. But the act of going through the menu and saying, this is the best move, the one that's super effective, that's not fun. There's nothing fun about that.
And the thing is, it's funny because like I disagree on a base level. Like, I don't think that the gameplay isn't fun, but I think that like, because we've stripped so much of the challenge and it's become so brain dead, it isn't fun anymore, right? And a lot of people say it's like,
I think that the reason why people feel like we stripped away the challenge is because we did this before. It's the same thing. So it's not hard because I know now more than ever that the water type attack is going to murder Onyx. But when I was 8, I didn't know that. So I'm like, yo, well, Ash Thundershock them.
I think like, a big thing though is also that like the AI has been made worse, right? Like characters don't fight as well. And you can see that in this game where like Pokemon hit harder. They like strategy is more key. Like, they get stat boosts if they're irate and things like that, which are all things
that's another thing that I don't think I agree with. Like, playing through the Nuzlocke that I just did, The AI is brutal. Like, and they give them some messed up moves in the video game. Like, I lost to B so many times because she has the counter of brutal swing. She's a fighting type gym leader, and she's like, I know you're going to fight me with psychic types, dude. I don't give a crap. I have brutal swing. And then she murks my whole entire team with her dark type attack. But because they have the wild area and people are so excited about that and they over level with that and all their Pokemon are 20, 30 levels above everybody else, they're like, oh, this game's easy. And it's because they give you enough rope to hang yourself. It's not because they made the game frictionless. It's because they allowed you the option to make the game frictionless. And most people took it.
You're right. But I also think that speaks to a problem with game design, because I think that, like, to your point, the AI is hard in a Nuzlocke, right? Where you've implemented other things that you
force yourself to not over level. That's the main thing, like to not give yourself all like a war chest of options to be able to bulldoze through everything.
And this game does that itself. Yeah. And that is what we're talking about.
Because of its mechanics.
Yeah, right. And that's right. When I talk about wanting that, that's what I want, right? Is I want the game to be smarter, not allow me to just be like, to kind of like cheese my way through it, basically. But also, like, when the game is already easy and then you can easily cheese it, it becomes that thing where, like, I bounced off replaying Brilliant Diamond because I'm like, I'm not enjoying the moment-to-moment gameplay in the way that I am with Arceus, because the battles are more satisfying because there is more challenge, there's more risk, there's more reward. And turn-based combat systems, I love them, right? And like Persona, playing that game on like max difficulty, it took strategy, it took thought, it took a level of engagement that it doesn't take in Pokemon when you're just like, I can just keep spamming moves, even if they're not super effective, because my Pokemon are strong and everyone else is dumb. And like in this, it's not that easy, right? Like you have even Pokemon that are under level that can beat your best Pokemon. And that makes you think harder when you're going into a combat encounter, or like knowing like, oh, well, this Pokemon's definitely going to attack me and there's 3 of them. And like, how am I going to overcome this obstacle?
Right now, or just in general, like in games, a thing that will always make a game more difficult is adding more variables. This game is harder because there are more variables. Not like, and same thing with like Persona and stuff like that. And that's why, to me, it's like I'm always crusading for like nuke the turn-based, because it inherently, even if they add more layers to it being turn-based, it will still have less layers than an action game that has RPG like elements.
Yeah, I don't agree though, because like, I mean, I don't think that's what Pokemon needs to do to make the moment-to-moment gameplay more fun.
I don't think that it's what they need to do to make it more fun, because more fun is like, it's a number game. It's like,
it's subjective too, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I like turn-based games.
Yeah, right.
I like strategy games, so I want it to be that, because that's what it is, know?
So for me, it's like, I like a lot of this stuff about, like, I like the turn-based strategy and all that stuff being the behind the scenes, but the act of scrolling through a menu is never fun to me. Like, I will have infinitely more fun, like thinking about like, oh, I got to think about spacing and, like how I approach this character, or like what happens if I move faster or slower or jump when I do, blah, versus if I pick this option, like I'm physically picking the option. And I think that makes it like the experience always more different than if I just like eventually figure out a game plan of like what option to pick in what situation.
So I don't necessarily agree. I think to me, it's very much like a taste thing. It's like whether or not that genre vibes with you and like what you want to get out of that experience. But I think that like Pokemon could learn a lot from Persona 5 in the way that it takes those things and it makes it like just so much quicker, where it's like each different kind of attack you can do is mapped to like a specific button. It's a lot easier to get into a rhythm where you're like making decisions quickly and not sitting and waiting, because that's the thing that I think makes turn-based battles feel stale, is when you're like sitting and waiting for an animation and you're waiting for the next turn to be taken. And it's like, you want to be able to have the like long game of the battle be the thing that you're thinking about, right? Where it's like, yeah, I shouldn't be able to just get into this encounter and win in 2 seconds. That's not going to be rewarding, right? Because it's not about game feel at that point, right? Like for a strategy game to be satisfying, it needs to challenge you and it needs to make you think, and it needs to be willing to like push you down so that you push back. Right. And for a long time, Pokemon has not been interested in that. And this game represents a change in a big way because it is constantly trying to push you down and then being like, here are the ways that you can push back, figure it out. Right. And whether that's leveling, whether that's having the right amount of items, whether it's, you know, going back to the town and getting a fresh start for another run. Like, I like that it is constantly asking me to go as far as I can before I can't go any further. Right. And like,
I just, whatever solution it like brings us to the point where that isn't a finite thing, because at least me, like even the ones that like the more modern ones that I've liked, you know, like we talked about Fire Emblem, Three Houses and stuff, right? I always come to a point in every single turn-based game that I have it down to a science and I'm like, I know the solution here. But in games like Smash Brothers, I'm always being challenged at every point, even a lot of times when I'm playing against people that are worse than me, because I'm able to like approach the game differently every time and there will be a completely different outcome.
That's the thing though, right? Is I think that you get that out of Pokemon if you get to the metagame, right? Because if you were just
I play the metagame, and that's what I'm saying. It's math. It's like there's 20 viable Pokemon, and if you give them these stats and Smogon lays it all out for you, you're gonna win.
That's the thing though. I don't agree with that, because I think you're right to an extent, but when you look at like the players that really push the metagame and the Pokemon scene forward, it's the people that think outside of that binary, right? Like, yeah, you can make those same choices or whatever. And yeah, maybe you'll place in the top 100 or whatever. But if you want to win, you need to be creative. And you think about someone like Seijun Park and his Pachirisu at like 2018 Worlds, or like Wolf Glick and him using like a bulky defensive Raichu as like,
but that's the thing. Look at the rest of their team, right? Like if their whole team was different, I would give you that. But the thing that everybody talks about is like, oh, well, he had a Pachirisu. That's pretty sick. But everybody else on his team is like the standard Landorus and, you know, like the whatever the meta is for that current moment. But it's like it's entirely different from like, yo, this was a whole different team. And in fairness, because of the way the game is made, they're limited in that way. Like, because there always will be a right answer. Like there can be some variety to that right answer, but you have to build around the variety with enough foundation that has enough of the correct answer to make that work.
That's true to some degree for sure, right? But I think that like you bring up Smogon, look at all the different versions of the metagame that exist too, right? And that like there's OU, there's UU, there's RU, there's NU.
Right. But those all exist because of the math. Because like if those tiers didn't exist, people would literally use 10 Pokemon. Like if Uber was the only, or if there was no holds barred, if it was literally use whatever Pokemon, the only Pokemon that would be viable in the meta are the box legendaries, and that is it.
Yeah, and that's the thing though, right? Is like because there is all this math and that like there are Pokemon that, you know, there are some Pokemon that can only fill one niche, but there are a lot that can fill a bunch. And like that's something that also influences strategy. We're like, yeah, maybe it's the same. You know, maybe there are a pool of 30 or some odd Pokemon that are on every single team, but like, how are you using it too, though? Right? It's like,
how much variance is there though? You know, because like even then it's a numbers game.
Yeah,
like
but
you can have four moves, and then you have the pool of moves that your Pokemon can learn.
So right, but that's the thing, right? Is not every Pokemon needs to be built the same way. Like you can think about like someone like I remember in Gen 4, for example, because we've got, you know, this region on the brain. Right. Salamence was like a really dominant force in the meta game. And there was like the, you know, choice band all out attack set. You could do mixments. You could do like a dragon dancer. And like, those are all things that like are very different strategies. And anytime you enter an encounter with somebody who's using a Salamence, you have to know like, okay, there are 3 or 4 things this thing could do, and it has 30 different moves it could use depending on what other Pokemon that are on their team that I haven't even seen yet.
Right.
And then thinking like, what's my answer to that? And if it's this, how do I respond? If it's that, how do I respond? Like there is so much depth to the metagame because of all of those options.
But there's a lot of depth in the metagame with the Pokemon that are good enough to have that sort of depth. Because most of them don't.
But again, depending on what level of play you're talking about, right? Because
because it's going to be the people that know the math the best that are going to be able to like do that. And for sure, there's definitely like,
and that's the same thing with Smash, though, right? You talk about Smash, you get that experience because you're a deep player and you think about the game.
But the reason why I'm thinking about like the reason why I feel so strongly about this in this instance is because like Isabelle, to me, like as somebody that looks at the game and is like, these are this character's tools and blah, blah, blah. To me, that character is garbage, but that character has won major tournaments with top tier characters and stuff like that. And it's not the same. It's the
same argument as Pachirisu, though.
No, but it's not, though, because they're literally just using Isabelle. Like, I could see if it was like, oh, they're a Joker main, but they also play Isabelle. It's like, no, they literally just use Isabelle. This character that is terrible beat top tier characters. And the top 16 players all use different characters, you know? Like, if you look at the top 50 players in Smash, there's like 45 different characters. If it was the top 50 players in Pokemon, there would be way more crossover. 80% of the top 50 Pokemon players teams would have the same, you know, you would have every once in a while a Pachirisu or two, but there's going to be a whole bunch of like bleed through with other Pokemon.
I would argue that has more to do with the fact that your Pokemon team is made up of multiple Pokemon and that like having one or two Pokemon that are keyly different, like, because when you think about it, right, like, yes, every other Pokemon, to take it back to the Pachirisu example because it's the most famous, right, every other Pokemon on the team was similar to what the opponent used, but that one Pokemon with a unique strategy was the thing that made the difference. You know?
Right. But so I think also in the like the same way, there's some players, or most players, I would say, that use one character, right? Like that situation where it's just Isabelle or just Piranha Plant or whatever, right? But then there's also players that literally have rosters of characters that they play on a top level, and there's 7 of them. You know, like if you look at a Japanese major, most of them play like 5 characters, 3 characters at minimum, you know? Like, so it's the same thing. There's still like a big pool of like, well, they have to find more solutions and stuff like that. But a lot of times those solutions are still all different. Like, even though it's like they have 6 characters or whatever, it's not like one of them is their wacky pick and then 5 of them are top characters. It's just like, no, all 5 of these characters are people that they like and they want to play as, and they got really good with those tools.
Like, I guess to put a pin on this thing, because I think we could talk about this we could talk for another 2 hours. I think I've always thought of Pokemon as very analogous to chess, and I think that it's about that, right? Like,
honestly, same.
But it's the same pieces every game, but it's about how you use them, and it's about how you think about how your opponent is going to use them, and can you outthink them? Can you outpredict them?
And I think that is the difference. There is like, you don't think about like fighting games in that way, whereas I do.
You do,
think of it.
Right?
Yeah, like I think of it as chess. It's just like, they engage me more because it's like there's more pieces on the board, and there's more, like the board is bigger, you know, and that keeps me engaged for longer. Whereas a lot of times when I'm playing a RPG, it's like I'll play the like initial story mode or whatever, and by the time I'm 20 hours in, I'm like, I've figured this out and I'm not engaged anymore.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's always about like pushing the challenge, right? And it's why I want a difficulty option, right? Like I want smarter AI. I want
and this is I'm genuinely curious about this. How would you do that beyond just more numbers in terms of like higher level smarter AI? Like how would that,
I think,
like just them being like, oh, you use a poison type, so I'm going to use a psychic type, you know?
Right. And I think for me, it would be having AI that knows the ins and outs of the game in the same way that a player that's familiar with it would, right? Where it's like, yeah, there's a lot that comes down to the rock, paper, scissors of it all with Pokemon, but like, that's not a one-to-one thing, right? Like just because your Pokemon has a type advantage or whatever, doesn't mean that you're going to win. if the other player outthinks you, right? Where it's like, okay, for example, right? Thinking of a Pokemon with like a common check, right? So say I'm using a, that Salamence example, right? And I've got, I can trick an opponent into thinking that I'm using one set, right? Like the Mix Mints set. That was the entire premise of that set was you think I'm going to use attacking only attacks. So you bring out a physical defender and then I hit you with a special attack. I would love if the AI was capable of thinking and planning in that way and reacting to what I'm doing rather than being like, I have one Pokemon and it has these moves and I'm going to spam them until I die, right? Like there is so much more thought into a Pokemon battle than that, right? And I've played so many strategy games, right, that ask more of you when in that regard, right? With like, again, I brought up Persona 5. Like I think of something like Wargroove, where like the last board of Wargroove, I had to play for like 2 weeks, to figure out like, this is where, oh, these enemies come in at this point and they attack me at this angle and these are my resources. Like I think that that's really what you need to do, right? Is it's not necessarily just about like making the opponent hit harder. It's like making the opponent think like somebody who could actually win a battle rather than being like, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that you're going to clean everybody's clock.
Did you play the, you said you dipped out pretty early. So you didn't like play through the Elite Four of Brilliant Diamond?
No, I haven't yet. And I know that was something where like the Elite Four in Gen 4 was tough.
Right. See, but that's also a thing that like, that's what that just showed me why I think it's frustrating, because like most of the game is not like that. And the reason why people are like, this is so hard is because like they played the rest of the game like a regular Pokemon game. So they're, they're messing around, they're leveling up their Pokemon, however, and then out of nowhere, the numbers go way up. So it's like, well, I'm not EV trained. I don't have competitive items. I don't have these perfect moves on my Pokemon, because for one, the game doesn't provide you with those. And for two, like you set me up with the expectation that like up until the 7th gym, I was playing the like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl the way that I'm playing Arceus, where it's like, all right, this Pokemon evolved, taking them out, picking up a new Pokemon that hasn't evolved yet, and I get to the 7th gym and I get wiped by Candace's Medicham. And I'm like, yo, what the heck? So then I had to actually build a team. The 8th gym, garbage. I just did the standard Pokemon thing, had my highest level Pokemon, hit the highest number move, and he lost, Right. And then I got to Elite Four and it ramped up again.
And like, that's the thing, right? Is I want the game, because like I think back on Gen 1, right? And I remember I had the official strategy guide. And one of the things that it did was it would be like, in this section of the game, if you're struggling, these are Pokemon that are optimal for you to use, right? I would love for the game to ask me that of me, where like the opponents that you come in contact with do have Pokemon that have properly invested EVs, right? They do have competitive items. And like, again, have a difficulty scale. If somebody doesn't want to engage with all that stuff and doesn't care about all that stuff, let them have the same experience that they'd have out of the box.
That's the thing that's also frustrating about that for me though, right? Because like, what if I don't want to do that? Like, what if I want to what if I want the game to be challenging, but I also want to use the Pokemon that I think are cute?
But that's the thing, is you should be able to, right? Like, I don't think that it like should preclude you necessarily, because like I don't think the argument is how do we make I don't think every character that you interact with needs to have the absolute best Pokemon within the absolute best situation. But the difference between like them being garbage and like I can just like I don't even have to think about beating them. And there's no universe where any, like even in this game, right? Like the wild Pokemon are challenging me, but every actual player that I've encountered with, they have one Pokemon that has no chance against me, right? Like
my main thing is like, I just want as many Pokemon as possible to be viable. I don't want it to be like, and I mean like viable alone.
At top level of
like
play.
like viable, not as an accessory, not as a swing pick, but like I could literally like I could battle a Salamence with just my Pachirisu, a 1v1 battle, and win that battle. You know what I mean?
And
Like
yeah, and
situation.
I think you generally
In the same way that Ash, like Ash can beat Brock's Onyx with his Pikachu.
Yeah, and I think generally speaking, I agree with that should be a thing you should be able to do in single player.
Because the game markets around that. Even multiplayer, though. Like, I should still, like, even multiplayer, I feel like I should be able to use Pokemon that I like to play the game.
The only reason I don't agree with that in terms of multiplayer is that I think that, like, the Smogon meta, right, of having these different tiers of play is something that makes the metagame more rewarding. Like, some of the best battles I've had or most memorable battles I've had are at lower tiers of play with like Pokemon that have different, because it's like, I think it's less about like every Pokemon needs to be as strong as, the legendaries versus like, how do you make it where
that's why it's like, I don't want it to be that binary either. It's just, I want it to be a thing where there's some sort of like endpoint where every Pokemon could win for some reason. In the same way that like Pikachu didn't overpower Brock's Onyx and use outside source. Yeah, exactly. But that's not really possible in the current system,
It is, but it's limited in the ways in which it's possible. And I think that's fair to say, but it is, you see it all the time, right? Where like a random Pokemon that has no business being in Ubers becomes a force in the metagame because someone finds a weird niche.
Right. But it's through the context of every other Pokemon. Like Ash didn't say, Squirtle, come out. All right. Ambush him, Now Pikachu Thunderbolt. Like, that's a different thing,
Sure.
But hold on. Do we have any more questions?
We did. There's like 2 more.
What are your favorite new features in Arceus? I
feel like we've answered that question. I think for me, it's like it's the loop. It's the way in which they've made the loop faster and better. Those are the best features by a lot.
Agreed. And that's from Enderjess. Pat Green, considering the bits that were introduced in Let's Go Pika Eevee and the Wild Area, Overworld Chinese, full camera control, and how they evolved to create Pokemon Legends Arceus, what do you predict for Gen 9? To me, it sounds like we might get a version of what you described in an old video. Yeah, I think that they're funneling into stuff that I've talked about in the past, honestly. Whether I think ultimately, like, what I think that they'll end up landing is somewhere around like a Xenoblade or like a Kingdom Hearts sort of situation.
I think long term, I imagine the structure of Pokemon to be very, very similar to something I remember I've pitched over the years a couple times, where like there will be towns or cities that are hubs that have gyms or contests or any of the more traditional things that you expect in hub areas of a Pokemon game, and that everything in between that will eventually become a wild area.
Yeah.
And you'll have free open reign of open environments to explore and discover and have that kind of loop. And then you'll go to towns and settlements to advance the story. I think that's probably what we're building.
I think like end game, like what it should be, like in that sense, like structure of the game, like literally MMORPG. It's like they release, like the games become like, all right, this is the Hoenn release of Pokemon, and if you start like, so from the purchase end, the consumer end of like when you buy a game, it's sort of like what they did with Fire Emblem, where it's like, all right, you buy a game with Fire Emblem Fates, you buy the game and it's the same game across the board for everybody, but then you're met with a choice of like, do you want to play what was it, what were the 2 options?
It's 2 families. I don't remember their names.
2 different families, but that's what they do. It's like, all right, you're a kid and you're moving to a town. What town do you want to move to? I want to move to Johto. And then that's the world that you go through. And then once you beat that, it's like, you want to pay $20 for this other region or $40 or whatever they want to do. And then like you
dreams
do the Ash thing,
Yeah.
Like I could see that being in 10, 15 years, Yeah,
I hope that there's a future where that happens. I think that's always been an appealing idea.
Mm-hmm. And then Justin said, how much do you hate Arceus? How much I hate it is 1,000 out of 10. Game sucks.
If we're talking about the game, I would say I hate it probably 0 to 1 out of 10. If you're talking about Arceus,
talking about the game, if we're talking about the Pokemon, he's best Pokemon, you know.
I gotta say, I feel like Arceus is where they jumped the shark.
Yeah, Arceus is kind of dumb.
So I don't love him. I feel like we probably never should have made a Pokemon god, but he's here and his design's cool enough.
The thing about it is, like, I think that there's no way to really avoid making a Pokemon god, because like it's kind of like the Dragon Ball thing where there's just multiple gods. It's like
the power creep is
exactly. At first it was like, yo, Kami's god. That's God, the Piccolo man. And then they go to Dragon Ball Z. And it's like, nah, King Kai's God. And they keep going up and up and up and up and up. That's sort of what they did with Pokemon, but they stopped at Arceus. Because at first it was like, yo, Mew created everything. Everything came from Mew. And then we eventually got to Arceus. But the game's good. It's a good game.
It's a great game. I'm really enjoying it.
I agree. Thanks for joining me here, Pete.
Thanks for having me, bud.
No problem. Anytime. Next time, we'll have you here for the first time, a different time. Well, actually, aren't you supposed to be coming back? No, yeah. You're supposed to be coming back like next week. We're
supposed to be coming back next week. So hopefully
you're supposed to be coming back next week with Parker. So we're going to talk about Pokemon again. It'll probably be, like we'll be further along in the game, obviously. We got to hear about Parker's experiences, and it'll probably be like a not Pokemon exclusive episode. So hopefully you like that. But if you don't like that, because I know a lot of people follow me specifically to hear about my thoughts on Pokemon, I don't know what to tell you.
One day we'll get our Pokemon podcast off the ground.
It's true. I mean, we gotta do it. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow Pete on all that stuff. Link down below. They're doing great stuff over there at Flipscreen. I've been
Flipscreen Games, baby.
A minute ago. In the early days. I haven't been on the podcast since then, though.
Yeah, you got to come back on. You came on and we talked about like Arceus speculation. Now we gotta have follow up.
Now we have the game. We can do that like, I don't know, like closer to like when we beat it or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because we kind of already had the early game discussion. We did that.
I mean, I feel like we absolutely could have talked for another 2 hours.
Definitely, for sure. Definitely. But the thing is, like, I don't want to put Steve through that. Like, it's a lot easier for us to have those conversations because it's just us and we're talking about Pokemon and that's what people are here for. But when Steve is there and he's like, I don't really know or care that much about Pokemon, it's like we got to rein it in a lot more than we would here. But thanks for joining, everybody. For the sign-off question that we do sometimes. Have you ever had an apricot before? What does it taste like? Because I haven't.
Yeah, I've had one.
I was talking in the chat, but you can answer the question.
Oh, okay.
how do you like you like apricots?
Yeah, they're good. I like them. It's hard to describe what they taste like because I can't think of another
make
thing.
A Pokeball out of an apricot though. That's messed up. It's messed up that they got apricots.
That is kind of weird now that I think about it.
Make Pokeballs out of that, but we can't make Pokeballs out of apricots. That's messed up. Yeah. Anyway, goodbye.
Bye.